Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How y'all doing tonight? Yeah, could have been better, but okay. We'll roll with it. All right. Well, welcome. Thank you for attending the Santee City Council meeting of January 22nd, 2025. Let the record reflect that all council members are here and accounted for. And tonight we're going to start off with the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And let's see, who wants to do that tonight? Let me call on James Jeffries to do that. And then before we get to the invocation, let me tell you a little bit about Associate Pastor Jerry Phillips from Sunrise Church. Pastor Jerry represents Sunrise Church in the community. He leads the Sunrise Partnership with the Santee Food Bank, leading a team of Sunrisers on the third Tuesday of every month. They load commodities into cars of 220 to 250 families. A lot of help, people needing help. On the third Saturday of each month, Pastor Jerry leads a team of college and career students that pack groceries to be delivered by teams of drivers. They deliver groceries to the homes of over 50 people that are shut in senior mobile home parks. We really appreciate you doing that. Pastor Jerry's pastoral responsibilities at Sunrise are valued and loved by everyone. Pastor Phillips and his wife, Pat, welcome tonight, Pat, have been part of Sunrise for over 20 years and have been part of the pastoral team since April of 2019. In 2001, Pastor Jerry received his Bachelor of Science degree in Business Management from Christian Heritage College in El Cajon. When he's not in church, Pastor Jerry, his favorite thing is take long drives with Pat. You really like doing that with him? Does he talk the whole time? I bet he does some good talking, though. Just a few times we've had that opportunity, I've noticed. But I'm more than happy to listen to you anytime, sir. So, you also like to golf and watch ice hockey on TV, and not to mention watching your grandchildren play sports. And let's see. I just want to thank you for being here. I know you've been here before. Every time is a pleasure. I ask that you pray for our great nation, our state of California, the victims of all the fires around the state, and of course, Santee and this council for guidance and wisdom. So please rise for the invocation.
Most awesome and wonderful God, you are so welcome here tonight. We're asking God for your covering over our state and all the affairs of our great California. We pray for our neighbors to the north. We pray for the whole Los Angeles region that is going through a crisis right now. We pray, God, for the people's comfort. We pray for guidance for the leadership. And we pray, Father God, that you'll turn that terrible situation around quickly. Father, we thank you for our community. We thank you for all the businesses that are here in Santee. We thank you for each business that's here, each owner, each person that shops and does business here in our community. We thank you for the residents, and we also thank you, Father God, for this council here tonight. We pray, God, that you'll guide the business affairs of our community. And we do thank you so much for Santee. We thank you for its leadership. And we thank you for the people that live here, shop here, and do their businesses here. We thank you for all of this. In your name, Jesus, amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, James. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. All right, that takes us to a proclamation, and that will be handed out tonight by Councilwoman Koval. And so come on down from the Shenyang Performing Arts folks that are receiving that. Come on down. Come all the way up here. All the way. You're welcome all the way up here.
Hello. Hi. Okay, welcome. I saw your email, whoever sent the email, and asked that it tonight be recognized tonight at our city council meeting. So I do have a proclamation to read, and I understand you want to say a few words after that. So the proclamation is, whereas more than ever, our world needs something that promotes peace, hope, and the upliftment of the spirit, Shenyang does just that through its high-caliber artistic performance of beautiful dance music. And whereas Shenyang was established in New York in 2006 by artists who practice Falun Dafa, all right, a mind and body meditation that is practiced around the world though it is banned in China. In fact, some Chinese artists who practice Falun Dafa fled persecution by the Chinese Communist Party. Those who came to the United States of America created a new performing arts company in their new land with their passion, hard work, and dedication. And whereas Shenyang has grown substantially from one performance group to 8 with hundreds of elite artists, this makes it yet another great American success story. And whereas the San Diego Falun Dafa Association is the presenter of Shenyang Performing Arts 2025 World Tour in the greater San Diego region, Shenyang performances entertain, enrich, uplift audiences in our region, including the city of Santee. Now, therefore, I, Laura Koval, on behalf of the Mayor John Minto and the city of Santee, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim January 23rd, 2025 to be Shenyang Performing Arts Day in the city of Santee, and encourage all citizens to support arts and entertainment such as Shenyang for enjoyment, fun, relaxation, and for family bonding. Thank you.
On behalf of the San Diego Falun Dafa Association, the presenter of Shenyang in San Diego County, we sincerely thank Mayor Minto for his proclamation. It's an honor to receive your kind words and the support of this wonderful community. Shenyang will perform in the California Center for the Arts in Escondido from March 13 to 19, and at the San Diego Civic Theater on April 12th. We'd love to invite everyone here tonight, along with the entire Santee community, to experience this breathtaking performance. Shenyang was founded as a nonprofit by a group of talented artists who escaped persecution by the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, in China. In our land of freedom, they dedicated themselves to reviving China's 5,000 years of divinely inspired culture, a heritage the CCP has spent decades trying to destroy. Despite the CCP's efforts to prevent people from seeing Shenyang, its stunning performances and uplifting message have inspired over 10 million people around the world over the past few years, including many fans in the San Diego area. We are deeply grateful to Mayor Minto and the people of Santee for designating January 23, 2025 as Shenyang Performing Arts Day. This recognition means so much. It celebrates cultural revival, artistic freedom, and faith. We believe Shenyang's inspiring performances and the timeless values they highlight will bring hope, unity, and inspiration to our community this year. Thank you again for this incredible honor. We look forward to sharing Shen Yun with all of you.
Thank you very much. That takes us to the calendar and consent calendar. Do I have any speaker slips?
There's one speaker on item 5, Mayor.
Thank you. And do I have a motion to approve the rest of the calendar?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Please call the speaker.
Truth.
And while you're coming up, Truth, what I'm going to do is say that item number 5 is adoption of a resolution authorizing submittal of a grant application to the County of San Diego for the Community Enhancement Program for fiscal year 24-25 to enhance arts and culture in Santee, committing to provide matching funds and approving the partnership between the City of Santee and County of San Diego.
Okay, thank you for reading the title. Let's start with the bad. There's only one part that's bad, and it's not the county part, actually. I find it unfortunate that the city has a DIE category, diversity, inclusion, and equity. I believe that's the proper abbreviation. Now let's get to the good part. Let's get money. That's what everyone on councils care about. Coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, I recently had a conversation with somebody, I can't remember who it was, could have been somebody around here, about how the city needs an American Indian powwow event. I would love to see white people try to drum. Of course, I'm just kidding. But I'd love to see the city take advantage of just a few pennies of the county's overinflated budget because, you know, they got $10 million for 2 different special elections for 2 different supervisors, and a third one's going to be in the works. So it would be great if we could take a few of those pennies and put it toward working together with the nearby tribal nations like Hamul Indian Village or the Barona Band. I don't know what the Discover Your Community event in March is, but I could probably discover it. And I also approve of the Art in the Parks program with painted utility boxes. I'm not sure, however, how community members could help implement that art like the item says, unless they're the ones actually doing the painting. Maybe they can carry the paint cans. That would be kind. Question, though, is who would approve the art design? Is it the council? And does the city have an arts commission or not? Thank you.
Thanks. Do you want to address any of that, Nick?
Staff would work together with the contractor to select the painting. Furthermore, the city does not have a commission, an arts and culture commission right now,
Right now.
at the current moment.
Marlene, I know that we do have some kind of committee that's working on arts and entertainment, and some of the commission kind of thing is in the works. Is that correct?
The city does have an ad hoc working group of a variety of artists in a number of different visual and performing arts forms. We've met with them several times. This grant came out of staff participating in that group, and we look forward to, if council approves this, to being able to provide additional public art in our community at a very low cost.
Okay, so basically to answer your question is that we are working on getting all that together. So probably hear more about it later on. Thanks. Any comments or questions, anybody?
Motion to approve item number 5.
Okay, motion approved.
Second.
Is there a second? Thank you. And did you get the motion in a second, James? Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. That takes us to non-agenda public comment. Do I have any speaker slips?
We have 2 speakers. The first is Antonio Cabrera.
Not sure how close I have to be to this right here, but good evening, Mayor.
Welcome.
Good evening, Vice Mayor. Good evening, council members. My name is Antonio Cabrera. I've probably met most of you guys by now, knowing that I work here. But for those that don't, I'm a firefighter paramedic here in the city of Santee. On behalf of the Santee Firefighters Association, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. The recent fires in Los Angeles remind us all of the devastating consequences of insufficient fire infrastructure and staffing. If we think something as catastrophic as this can't happen here, we're gravely mistaken. Just this week alone, we have had 5 fires in our county: the Bernardo Fire, the Lilac Fire, the Mission Valley Fire, which I was just on, the Paula Fire, and the Poway Fire. The Bernardo Fire. That's 5 fires just in this week alone, and we're not even pretty much through our fire season, so hopefully we don't have any more, but time will tell. Seeing as how fire season has now has become a danger year-round, our city deserves nothing but the best fighting chance if we were to happen to have a massive fire in our county or here in Santee. As you know, our city is surrounded by vegetation that would be deemed a wildfire risk. We also have our local river bottom that brings its own risks that we repeatedly respond to. I'm sure many of my coworkers can tell you that the 125 in Mission Gorge has become one of our most visited spots when it comes to these brush fires. We go there so frequent that it's gotten to the point that 911 dispatchers now refer to it as the usual spot. So that kind of tells you how often we go there. Having to frequently rely on neighboring cities for help further shows our need for better infrastructure and staffing. Having been in brush fires in and around our city, I can't stress to you the utmost importance of having the appropriate resources respond in a timely manner. Because unfortunately, as we have seen, not having the appropriate staffing and resources on hand can be the difference from stopping a fire in its track to a potential loss of life and property. We urge you, as leaders of the city, to prioritize the safety of our residents by addressing these critical issues. We look forward to hearing your plans to enhance staffing, upgrade infrastructure, and ensure that Santee is well prepared. Because it's not a matter if a brush fire happens, it's more of when it's going to happen. Thank you for your time, your leadership, and your commitment to our community. Respectfully, the Santee Firefighters Association.
Thanks, Tony.
No, thank you.
All right, I'm going to chirp on that because I've been doing it, and it's getting to a point where I'm just angry about it. A lot of people don't understand that this usual place that Tony was referring to is mostly not in the city of Santee. It's in the city of San Diego, technically, and so we don't have the rights to go through and clear out some of the debris or clear out the encampments, the drug encampments that are starting these fires. It's something that I don't know what else we can do. I know the sheriff's department is doing what they can, but once again, their hands are tied as well because it's the city of San Diego. And how do we get them to get off their asses and do something about this? Maybe our city attorney, maybe we have to file a lawsuit to recoup some of the costs of this known spot, because it's a known spot. It's at least 3 times a week now that we're getting notification that there's another brush fire there in the exact same spots. And we know who the perpetrators are. It just so happens to be one of those geographic areas that looks like it's in the city of Santee, but it's not. Yet we're still responsible for providing aid to that area because we're the closest to it, but we're not allowed to do anything about preventing more incidents from happening, and that's got to stop. It is going to cost somebody their life, and God forbid it be one of our firefighters or one of our homeowners. So I don't know what else needs to be done, but I don't know how many times you can show up to one single spot on an occasion for a fire. It's not something that's a paramedic issue, somebody fell, slipped, and that type of thing. It's a fire every single time. We've got to get something done about that spot in particular. I know there's more. There are other places out there, but that one in particular, it's just ridiculous.
Vice Mayor, staff is meeting tomorrow morning, as a matter of fact, to pull all of our resources together. There's a long list of things that have been done, but more needs to be done, and we'll be working on that first thing in the morning.
And that area is closest to me and the residents that I represent. So, it's at the point where, a neighbor, I have people knocking on my door, and I explain all the steps we've done, and what's in our power to do, the 3 emergency ordinances, the significant dollars we've spent for Santee taxpayer monies to address this. I'm personally working on kind of a comprehensive project, but with the help of others. And although I'm going to tap into you to help as well, with the resources that we are spending down there from the city of Santee. So this is taxpayer money. And also we're sitting on this $7.5 million FEMA grant, and we can't do anything because the environmental takes 18 months to 2 years. I've already contacted Senator Jones, Assemblyman Carl DeMaio, and they're totally willing to help because, a $7.5 million proactive spend versus a $1 billion reactive hit is not what we want. So, today I probably sent Marlene 4 different texts. Hey, they're moving the shopping carts across the street from this location to this location, both city, county lands, or Caltrans or city lands. We can't do anything. One was off the 52. When I was coming down, I'm going, there's a shopping cart off the 52 right behind the old car wash, usual space. And that was literally about 4 o'clock this afternoon. And I know, the Public Works team is going out there and trying to find them and, get what they can. And it's just such a mess. I am obviously I'm mad and frustrated, all those things. I would hope who's ever in charge on those pieces of property we can't control really pay attention to what's going on and what is happening in our state and work with us, not reactively, but proactively. And thank you for sending, I don't know if it was you, but there was also a patrol that flew over the riverbed a couple of nights ago because we were just chasing our tails, but trying to find the people that were starting those fires once again. So I know everybody here is working really hard, but it is beyond frustrating to the people that live in Santee.
Anybody else? Have you set up any meetings with District 11?
That is all happening tomorrow morning. We're putting out the action plan steps to make sure we get that. And yes, Councilwoman, it's going to take higher authority than what we have. So we appreciate that partnership.
All right, thank you. And thanks for bringing that up, Tony. Next.
The next speaker is Truth.
Where you been?
Just had to wait a little bit of time. Not a big deal. Hey, it's been a while. I made sure to bring a new hawk feather. It's the only way to fly in as an occasional visitor. I'm glad that you guys seem to have been having much fun without me at these meetings. The feeling's mutual because I've also been having much fun at other councils without you guys. It goes both ways. I've come to argue that car washes are indeed an immediate threat. Too many of them make people crazy. But a real direct and immediate fire threat to human life is actually battery energy storage sites. SDG&E is building a BESS at Mass Boulevard and Eucalyptus Court north of Braverman Drive. From SDG&E's PDF on the project, quote, the Santee BESS project will be connected to the state's market, meaning the California Independent System Operator will be able to dispatch energy from our batteries at any time to help balance supply and demand on the statewide electric grid, end quote. So the Santee residents are going to eat all the fire and cancer risk, and they're not going to get 100% of the energy benefits in a high fire hazard severity zone, which is soon going to have a fire facility in the middle of the city. The BESS facility contains 12 20-foot containers with lithium iron phosphate batteries, which are the most dangerous types of batteries that emit deadly toxins like hydrogen cyanide when on fire. Lithium fire is allowed to burn, and all the leftover lithium waste has to be cleaned up by a hazmat crew. SDG&E has at least 20 other BESS facilities in construction, mostly in rural areas and some in densely populated areas like Claremont and El Cajon. But that doesn't include the BESS sites by other companies like AES, Gateway, Terragen, and Nighthawk. Poway did nothing for their people. All Mayor Buckey could say is we're going to get sued, so we just have to do it anyway. So a few suggestions for Santee towards any BESS builder as provided by Paul Hinken and modified by myself. 1, require a buffer zone of 1 mile per 75 megawatts away from hospitals, houses, schools, and jails. 2, require at least 2 paved 15-foot wide evacuation routes within 100 yards. 3, require mitigation, shelter-in-place facilities every 10 miles. 4, wind pattern plume modeling must be conducted for worst-case scenarios. 5, require applicants to secure a $10 million liability bond as a mitigation. 6, require a 1-year pre-notice period to affected communities within a 5-mile radius. 7, mandate the installation and daily test of smoke detectors and heat sensors. 8, appoint a community liaison or create a committee to address concerns. 9, document all safety incidents and make those records publicly available, including noise level readings. 10, require adequate fire suppression agents on site. 11, require metal mesh over facilities to reduce floating embers. 12, require a fire mitigation fund to fund the inevitable extra firefighter requirements. 13, require a displacement and relocation mitigation fund to help pay for people's decreased home values or for the real potential of their homes being burned down. Because it's not an if, it's a when situation for best fires and add to well.
No further speakers.
Thank you. That takes us to item number 8, which is a public hearing and resolution for General Plan Amendment GPA 2019-4 to update the safety element of the Santee General Plan and adoption of a negative declaration under the California Environmental Quality Act. Christine.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Tonight, I will provide an overview of the safety element update, which includes addressing a number of statutory requirements imposed by state legislation. So the safety element is one of the elements of the general plan. It's a high-level policy document that consists of the city's overall goals and objectives, which is integrated into the city's operations through regularly updated regulations, such as the municipal code and fire and building codes. The element was adopted by City Council in 2003 and amended in 2011. It focuses on policies related to development that minimizes risk associated with natural and human-made disasters. So brief summary on the background. In 2020, City Council authorized a professional services agreement with Harris & Associates to incorporate environmental justice sections to the safety element. In 2021, the scope of services was expanded to update the safety element and prepare the environmental document. Also in 2021, a stakeholder community meeting was held. In 2022, a second stakeholder community meeting was held, and we also had the City Council public workshop. In 2023, the scope of services was revised to complete the safety element update, and the State Board of Forestry and Fire Protection approved the safety and environmental justice element. In 2024, the California Geological Survey of the Department of Conservation provided no comment on the project. The highlights that I will present are key state mandates, public outreach, goals, policies, and municipal code requirements. Also, the updated geotechnical study and the San Diego River flood study. Lastly, disaster preparedness. So the following are key state mandates that the element will incorporate. And I will go through these in the presentation. So first, I will discuss environmental justice, which will be combined with the safety element. Environmental justice is defined as the fair treatment of all people. The intent of the California Government Code is to improve the quality of life for people by reducing exposure to hazards and improving access to goods and services. As part of developing an environmental justice element, a disadvantaged community had to be identified. Disadvantaged communities are low-income areas disproportionately affected by environmental pollution and other hazards. These areas are more likely to have lower quality of life. The disadvantaged communities in Santee have been identified as a southern portion of the city, outlined in black. An existing conditions assessment was also prepared to identify areas with greater pollution exposure and reduce access to public goods and services. And the areas here is what the assessment identified. A community survey was conducted to identify what environmental justice issues were of greatest concerns to the residents, which will be discussed in the next slide. 2 stakeholder meetings were held. The purpose of the first stakeholder meeting in 2021 was to present the results of the survey and to elicit feedback on what should be included in the existing conditions assessment. And the purpose of the second stakeholder meeting was to solicit feedback on goals, objectives, and policies for environmental justice. This slide summarizes the main community concerns, which are similar to the findings in the existing conditions assessment. And those concerns include air pollution, water pollution, transportation, affordable housing, heat, and public safety. These are some of the goals and policies intended to address concerns raised by the community and identified in the existing conditions assessment. These include goals to promote access to public facilities and services, promote access to physical activity, healthcare, and healthy food. A complete list of goals and policies are provided as an attachment in the staff report. State law also requires a safety element to address climate change, adaptation, and resilience through a vulnerability assessment. This assessment evaluates the exposure to climate hazards, the sensitivity of people and city critical infrastructure, potential impacts and effects of climate change, the ability to adapt to these effects, and ultimately scoring to rank those most vulnerable. The element will be updated to include objectives increasing resiliency to the impacts of extreme heat, wildfire, extreme precipitation, and drought. So now I'm going to provide an overview of the safety components of the element. As part of the safety element update, we worked with the safety committee, which included representatives from the departments shown here on the slide. The meetings were held to discuss the required updates and receive feedback on new goals and policies. Other state mandates include SB 1241, which requires the safety element to provide updated information regarding fire hazards. So that includes providing the fire hazard severity zone maps, historical data, information about wildfire hazard areas, the general location and distribution of existing and planned uses, defensible space compliance measures, and a list of local, state, and federal agencies with responsibility for fire protection. SB 99 and AB 747 requires the city to identify residential development in hazard areas and evacuation routes. The map shown here is a city divided into pre-identified zones, and that evacuations are based upon specific geographic impacts and the hazard being presented. These are examples of policies that will be added or updated to the element, but are already being implemented through the municipal code, California Building Code, and fire codes. So that includes conducting plan reviews to ensure developments comply with fire codes, conducting business inspections, as well as defensible space inspections for real estate transactions. The geotechnical study and the seismic hazard study was updated and incorporated into the element. It provides objectives and policies to identify and evaluate geotechnical hazards. And the San Diego River Flood Study defines special flood hazard areas and is incorporated by reference in the element and the municipal code. The following programs are developed to assist with emergency operations. The Standardized Emergency Management System sets measures by which a jurisdiction should handle emergency disasters. The County of San Diego Office of Disaster Preparedness and Recovery is a liaison between incorporated cities, Cal OES, FEMA, and the American Red Cross. The Unified San Diego County Emergency Service Organization operates under a joint powers agreement and provides coordination of disaster response. The County of San Diego Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan identifies county's hazards and sets goals to mitigate potential risks. The County of San Diego Emergency Operations Plan provides a planned response to disaster situations. The City of Santee Emergency Operations Plan incorporates and coordinates the city facilities and personnel into an efficient organization capable of responding to an emergency. And the Emergency Operations Center, which is located at City Hall and serves to provide centralized management to facilitate a coordinated response. So in summary, the safety element is being updated to incorporate a variety of state mandates, including the addition of environmental justice. Accomplishments are updated and new policies are added to reflect progress. And the updated geotechnical study is included, and the MJHMP is also referenced in the element. Prior to adoption of the CEQA document was made available for a 30-day public review that began on October 25th, 2024 and ended on November 25th, 2024. One comment letter was received, but did not raise any new environmental issues. Staff recommends that council open and close the public hearing, adopt the resolution adopting the negative declaration, and adopt the safety and environmental justice element. So that concludes staff's presentation. Staff's available to answer questions, and also our consultant, Kelsey Hawkins with Harris and Associates, is also present.
Thank you. Let's have our speaker.
There's one speaker, Truth.
Oh, that was actually a really, really brief summary, considering this thing was 264 pages. I think I skimmed maybe a little bit more than half, and then I didn't have any more time in my life. So the things that stood out to me: environmental justice communities, climate resiliency, climate vulnerability, climate change can exacerbate wildfire risk. I just feel like what fantasy world are we living in? Because does the climate change, does that include the wild arsonist by chance? Has there been a study to determine who is the main cause of these various predictable fires on the windiest of days every single time in the exact same places? Because I know, even watching the news, and they don't ever update us like they should about, hey, this is what causes fire, this one causes one on this date. But a lot of them, especially the ones in the national parks, have been caused by arsonists. So climate change, we can put that in the trash now. Identifying areas with greater pollution exposure and reduced access to public goods and services. Is that even relevant to Santee? I feel like there's plenty of things here. There can always be more. Promote civic engagement. I haven't seen that. You guys could work on that. And pages 46, 47, and at least 89 have an inaccuracy. There is no Green Line trolley in Santee anymore. There is only the copper shuttle now. Why is that not updated? It's very important to know that, because you're going to have another transfer if you want to go somewhere. And this is only because the city failed one of the things in the item, which is to promote and support the continued expansion of the San Diego trolley system that benefits Santee residents. Or objective 3, promote access to public transit by increasing frequency of buses and trolleys, decreasing travel duration for commuters. Yeah, that didn't happen. When you have another transfer, I tested it, it was about another 15 or 20 minutes. That is pretty awful. You can drive anywhere in that time from here. And then for your light rail transit hazards part of the item, I hate to be the constant public transit advocate, but the city probably is going to need those annoying trolley arms to help the dumb drivers like La Mesa has. Also, double tracking the trolley to Gillespie needs to happen, and it's going to one of these days, whether anybody here wants it or not. And let's see, maybe I'll skip that part. I did hear this from an MTS trolley operator. They said the platforms for the disabled or elderly can affect trolley departure times. That's interesting. They were suggesting you shouldn't use it unless you really need it because you're stalling the trolley. Is anyone going to determine that? I don't know. And the most important thing, evacuation routes definitely need to be built. There doesn't seem to be a plan for that within the report, and zero plan for the incoming best facility, because it's one now and who knows how many more later. Thank you.
No further speakers.
Thank you. I'm going to speak first on this. And hate to say this, but truth, you hit a lot of good points there. And here's some of my concerns. First of all, the fact that we're mandated to call things certain items. To say that we have to apply safety to everybody equally and then call out, race and gender or whatever else is, to me, ridiculous, because we are not in the business of telling people who we're not going to help. We help everybody. And so it's almost offensive to me to even suggest that we don't. And then I'm just going to go to some of the environmental stuff, air pollution, okay? We have identified air pollution in Santee, and one of the major causes is the backup and congestion on Highway 52. That's been part of our mantra since we began trying to expand the 52 and do some work on that. Unfortunately, the courts are not concerned about air pollution in our communities. They're concerned more about bugs and bunnies and things like that. They have ignored some of the greatest firefighting mitigation techniques that have been put in place. Matter of fact, the fire today up there in Rancho Bernardo, the Genesis, I think is the name of the system. Is that pronounced right, Genesis?
That's correct.
Okay, Genesis was used to order warnings and evacuations in that area. And from what I understand, it worked very well. So we actually see the, fruits of some of the work that we've done and put into our fire mitigation. Well, we have some people call themselves friendly environmental justice folks who just keep stopping our projects. And quite frankly, if we had some of our projects that were built, specifically Fanita Ranch, they are taking a big step in helping to reduce the traffic on Highway 52, which will reduce the air pollution in our city. And then they're going to have even better than an urban garden up in that area, which would address that all. But apparently the courts don't care if we have anything like that either, because they keep stopping us. Wildland fires. We have identified an awful lot of places where wildland fire interface is an issue. We have a greater buffer zone than most communities in the county. Residential areas, the only place that we can't have a bigger buffer zone is where the state of California prohibits us to mitigate underbrush, and that is because of what they call species or endangered species that are plants. So they'd rather save the plants than the people. We do have access routes, believe it or not, in many projects that we have around town for emergencies. I do have a question, though. I hadn't thought about this before. All those are locked, so who opens them up unlocks them and opens them up if we need to get somebody in or out?
I carry bolt cutters in my truck.
Well,
First responders are really good at opening those kinds of gates.
the what?
The first responders are really good at that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, that if they can't get there in a timely manner, do we have a contingency for that? So, I don't know, Chief, can you answer that better?
We do have keys to most of the access points throughout this entire city. We collaborate with utility companies, so if they have locks, we have city locks on them. But then we have our universal key as well, which is what Councilmember Trotter just referred to. We can get through anything.
Well, see, that's my hope, but I don't know. Maybe we could look at that a little bit more deeply because if we can't get a force responder there, we can't get somebody with bolt cutters there, and people need to get out, what's going to happen? I know there's probably an easy answer other than what we've just heard, but I think that's a very important question to find out. How do we get them in and how do we get them out? And, because it's a lot of people, I'd take my car and I'd just drive over it myself because I don't care. I'd rather, have a damaged vehicle than a, burned up house or body or whatever, and other people too. So I don't know. That's just something I thought about that maybe we can get a little bit more detailed answer on, or a better answer. Not that these weren't some good answers, but better answers perhaps. So I think overall, we have to do this, and we have to include this language because it's what the state of California is, making us do. I want it to be known, though, that if you live in the community of San Diego, we're making it the safest we can make it for every single person, whether they live here, whether they work here, or whether they're recreating here. We are, so the idea is that we have to adopt this. It is a good idea. I just don't like a lot of the language in it. So with that, I'll take any other comments.
I have a lot.
Okay, go ahead.
Forewarned. Okay, so I do have a lot of comments and a few questions. And my first question is, and it is based on the fact that the majority of us, for the first time, saw the safety element in 2022. We weren't around in 2011. And so reviewing it at that time, I don't know what, 2022 is a long time ago. I don't have, a perfect memory. So I don't know what changed from the 2022 report to this report. So I would recommend when you're doing something and there's a big time lapse like this, or maybe just in general, that you redline it in some way for us to review, because remember, we only have the weekend to do it. And maybe we wanted to watch a sports game or something. There was some things going on this weekend, but well, it's a lot to consume in a short amount of time, and it would be really helpful for that. Okay, and then I'm just going to go through my tabs. So, let's see the first one. I do have a lot. This is for a reason. My first one, and I did have a lot of kind of back and forth with Marlene for some clarification, with our city manager, Marlene, for some clarification, but I think I started with page 18 maybe. Anyway, it has to do with the FEMA flood hazard zone. So on page 15, we have the FEMA flood hazard zone map, but on page 13, it was pointed out to me that, because I asked about the FEMA flood zone specifically, and it says, in 2019, the city completed a comprehensive update to the municipal code that included updates to the flood damage prevention ordinance to minimize public and private losses due to flooding. So basically, this paragraph means that there's a separate study that's not the FEMA study that the city of Santee follows. And the reason why I even know that is because before I was on council, I was doing a construction project, and our construction project was following the FEMA floods, 100 flood zone plan. And then there wasn't really an issue with that for a while. And then at a certain point there was. And I was told by an employee who no longer works here, but I was told by the employee that we don't follow the FEMA flood zone plan. We follow the Rick's engineering plan. And I said, oh, well, what's that? And we don't have access to it, blah, blah, blah. So that's why I asked a lot of questions yesterday and today in my review. And I found out today that we follow a conservative flood plan from 1992. BIS, what's the name of the company that did it?
BSI. They did it as kind of in conjunction with our master drainage study back in 1992.
Okay, so I was told that there was a major flood.
Back in the late 70s and 80s, there were some massive floods that came through.
I lived here. Yep. Okay, so did the city pay for that study that you just talked about?
We paid for that study as part of our preparedness and safety plans at the time to be prepared. Keep in mind, you'd mentioned the FEMA flood maps. Those are for insurance rates only. Those aren't safety maps. Those are strictly, they're called flood firm, FIRM, flood rate insurance maps. They're a standard that was established by FEMA and the feds on what is a storm event that's a certain size that we should be insuring for.
Okay,
Again,
so that's fine. I'm not debating that part, and I didn't understand it, so that's why I asked a lot of questions. So I just want to understand. But the problem that I have then is that study that we actually are requiring people to use isn't even referenced in here. I mean, it says we updated our municipal code in 2020.
it is part of this is actually incorporated in our municipal code.
Yeah, but it's not in here. So if I'm somebody like me reading this and I see the FEMA map, it's not what we really follow, right?
We follow both for different reasons.
So it doesn't belong in the safety element, what we really
No,
follow?
the safety element is, again, FEMA maps are one thing. Our flood maps are different. Flood maps that we do are for safety based on actual realized calculated events that were established for safety. And then we added a foot of freeboard, and this is to prevent life loss, major property loss, not for insurance purposes.
Right, and you just said FEMA was for insurance purposes.
Only for insurance purposes.
The map in here is really just for insurance purposes and not really about the safety. And that's my whole point.
Yeah, no, and again, maybe we can work on that a little bit and we can talk more about that, but it does reference our municipal code, which has a very specific section on flood prevention and a flood ordinance that was established by city council at that time. And we've bolstered that through the years and modified it with the municipal code updates.
And my point is just that how would the normal person know that?
Understandable.
Okay. Page 72 is actually just a map. And my comment on the map, and this is the City of Santee Disadvantaged Communities map. It's all in shades of orange or red, and I would just like a little more contrast in the colors. It is not the easiest to read. What I'd really like to see is how this overlays with the different districts. I think I did ask about that in 2022 when we were doing these maps. Either there's a separate map somewhere that I didn't see. I mean, obviously I can tell that most of it's in District 3, but There might be some in 4, there might be some in 2. So I'd like to see that. Okay, so. On page, oh my gosh, where are we? 79. Okay. I guess I think I already just answered that question for myself. But page 80, under policies, I actually, it says new development, and then policy 3.4, I actually did make a comment about this, about prohibit land uses that could exacerbate the risk of ignitions in high or very high hazard severity zones, such as outdoor storage of hazardous or highly flammable materials, automobile service or gas stations, or temporary fireworks sales. Where do we allow that? We don't. Okay, but my note that I wrote was, what about battery storage facilities? And I realize that's something that's new to us in the last couple of years, but I think it should be identified in this document somewhere. Mayor Minto and I attended NECA, which is for electricians, their gala last Saturday night. And they actually made a comment specifically about battery storage facilities, and that the ones where the fires are burning weren't done by qualified, uniquely trained electricians. There's also problems with layout, and that's the other mitigating factor. But, you know, if you don't have the right electricians doing these projects, then you get what you get. So we need to address that somewhere in the safety element.
Can I ask a quick follow-up on
Sure.
that? When SDG&E does these projects like the BESS, do they have to get permits from the city for that?
It depends. I mean, if they have an existing facility where they're doing the improvement on their facility, then that's a Public Utility Commission issue, and there's a preemption. In newly sited facilities, there's more local control.
Okay, but I think we need to address that because it's getting, there's a assisted care, a couple of them, over on Eucalyptus right there, and the batteries are going to be basically within 50 feet of them.
Yeah, my concern there is, along with that, is goes back to what Laura was saying about the licensing, and that, because I know that we require any big projects that require a Type 10 license or Class 10 or whatever it's called. Is that?
I think it's a C10.
C10, thank you. And so the innuendo was that's a minimum, and some folks that are doing this work are not classified at that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the fire chief, when this issue came to the city's attention, there are a lot of the departments got involved in assessing this issue. And certainly there's some things that prospectively on other facilities we can look at. But again, it's primarily siting. It's not going to be specifying who's doing the electrical work on the site. But, you know, we can certainly do as much as we can do at the local level, and that's something we can look at. But again, it's other sites, and it has to do more with traditional zoning.
I think the county asked for a pause on these facilities. I don't know where that landed, but I do recall that was.
Yeah, but again, I think if you read, because I read what the county did, and if you read their legal opinion, it's what I'm saying to you right now.
Okay.
I think, you know, there's some different approaches and rhetoric about it, but it's pretty clear we have some authority in some places, we don't have some authority in other places. And I think we need to maximize our authority where we have it, but recognize that we don't have complete authority everywhere.
Okay. And so moving on to page 81, existing development, and this is just a comment. There's a lot of mention of defensible space. supporting vegetation management in adjacent undeveloped areas, mitigating, these things, vegetative hazards, and we can't even do it in our river bottom. So, the homeowners have to do it, the property owners have to do it, but we can't do it where we really need to do it. Page 82, my comment, there's a lot of policies, and this is related to all development, and I think we probably do a lot of these things, so I would definitely love, some reporting out on the safety element stuff. It seems like there's some stuff that's new, but there's some stuff that I would think we already do, so just more updates on how we're following our safety element. Let's see, improve the city's capacity to prevent and respond to criminal activities. I highlighted support the County of San Diego's efforts to relocate the existing Las Colinas jail as part of a state-of-the-art consolidated justice facility to be located elsewhere on the county's town center property. What? What's that? It's policy 4.7.
The county had plans to do a lot of other improvements to Las Colinas. It is my understanding, at least my belief at this point, maybe the sheriff, our captain can respond, but I don't know that there's currently any activity on the county to be able to make any other changes to Las Colinas.
And why would we support it anyway? Why would we relocate Las Colinas to another place in our town center?
This is a carryover from the existing safety element. We can certainly go back and take a look at that, but my understanding when Las Colinas was built, the city fought that pretty significantly, and the idea was get it out of that immediate area, even if it's moved to another part of, quote, town center, but not right in that immediate area. So we can double check that.
Okay, yeah, I would ask to remove it completely as a policy because I don't want to support moving it elsewhere on the county's town center property. To me, that says City of Santee property in our town center. Page 84, this goes to improve the safety and functionality of light rail transit, and policy 6.2 is San Diego, so basically MTS, to encourage transit stops in areas serving vulnerable populations such as nearby housing project, medical facilities, major employment centers, and mixed-use areas. They take away the bus routes in the vulnerable places identified. The seniors definitely have reduced bus routes in the areas where it's most needed. And then the other thing that I find ironic is, there's this whole concept of microtransit, and we have our Sharp Hospital now, and the copper line passes right past it. And I think that a lot of people that take public transportation, if they're trying to get to a medical facility, which is a big priority, they have to go all the way to town. There's just, they don't go where the people need to go. Shopping, yes, but like the true necessities. So I asked about microtransit to MTS at a SANDAG meeting, and they were just like, oh, no, we can't afford to do that. Okay, so.
Well, MTS has 3 years left before they're upside down. They're looking at raising rates, and God knows what else they can do to stay in business.
I'm not surprised.
They have to quit giving away money.
Well, they say we're going up in ridership, but the only ridership they're going up in is the free ridership.
Yeah,
so that's.
And they're finally, if I can interrupt, I apologize.
Sure,
They're finally starting to actually check for fares, which is, amazing that they went for the last 5 years without doing that. So we hired about 96 new security officers to start checking fares, but again, they're well under what they need to do.
Okay, so This is on page 88, reduce pollution exposure and improve air quality. And it mentions that we have other city-owned properties where we could create policies around reducing pollution. I think we're talking about District 3. But I don't know what other city-owned properties we have around there besides Big Rock Park. So it seems to me we would have to invest more in Big Rock Park, at least where the location where the teen center is, and actually invest a lot more into that facility if we're truly going to address the issue in that area. Policy 2.3, seek to partner with the San Diego County Air Pollution Control District. Guess what? I'm on it. So as of Monday, I would love to collaborate with the city of Santee for all the upcoming goals that have to do with air pollution, the Air Pollution Control District. I didn't understand what create targeted permit inspection programs in disadvantaged communities to help ensure enforcement of air quality permits means. If somebody would like to answer that, that is a question.
Christina or our consultant?
Yeah.
Somebody want to answer that?
So that's policy 2.5 on page 89, item 2. I did read this. Sure, I'll come back to it.
Yeah.
I think this is policies more on 89. Well, I did notice that it still said the green line instead of the copper line, so that was just the comment there. Page 90, explore more community centers throughout Santee, especially or such as the southwestern area of Santee. So I'd like to understand that more. Move ahead. This is page 92. 7.3, encourage the development of a San Diego River Park with passive recreation uses throughout Santee as part of an overall master plan concept for the entire San Diego River. I don't know that I agree with that, so I just put there, since we have so many problems in the San Diego River. I don't know that I want passive recreation out there. We already have that experiment of passive recreation on the west side behind my home and the trails that are put out there, not Walker Trail, but the trail on, Mass Park West, I guess we call it. And it's, I would never walk down there, never in a million years. It's not safe. It's just not safe. So unless it's, let's not forget the safety element of the safety element. Promote access to health care. That's on page 93. Encourage new health care facilities, including mental health facilities, to locate to Santee with a focus on areas where residents lack health insurance or are underinsured, such as southwestern portion. I don't know where we could build this in the southwestern portion of Santee. And we have Sharp, so I'm not sure if this is like a carryover once again from an old safety element. I don't know what the mental health facility, I don't know what this means. So I just wrote a big what next to that. And I would like more information on that. Page 95, continue to use home investment partnerships and other funding sources to assist with extremely low, very low, and low income housing rehabilitation. do we use this right now for housing rehabilitation? And, maybe there was a report on that, and I apologize if I forget.
We do, ma'am. That's, you allocate some of your CDBG money to do that.
To home? And they've been doing rehabilitation on homes?
They have over the last several years, yes.
And is that the same program that was like the Home and Guiding Hands, where it was the ADA access?
No, ma'am, that's different.
Okay. All right. Still on 95. Policy 12.2, consider establishing a community revitalization and investment authority in the Santee Town Center that would allow Santee to use a portion of the property tax increment generated in the area to develop affordable housing and otherwise support Santee Town Center community revitalization projects. What's this?
There are a number of ways to help finance affordable housing, as council's aware. So this is just one idea that's been put in as a policy. Let's look into seeing if there's another way to help finance affordable housing.
Since it's all in caps, Community Revitalization and Investment Authority, so it sounds really official. Do we have like a document around that right now, or is it just an idea?
We don't. It's there, again, it's one of the number of ways you can do an EIFD. There's a number of different ways to finance infrastructure and affordable housing.
Okay. Okay, I'm through it all. Like I said, it was a lot to read, and if you have an answer to that last question, which I already forgot.
I can answer the policy, the one on APCD enforcement. So it's basically targeted inspections on stationary source facilities under the jurisdiction of APCD, and ensuring these facilities aren't polluting in disadvantaged communities.
What kind of facilities?
I don't understand the facility.
And also, have you located them while you were doing your study?
The specific facilities?
Yeah.
I don't think so, no.
So then they don't exist.
So, and the reason why this stood out to me, just so you understand, is I haven't even had my first meeting on ACPD, but I've talked to some people that serve on it currently, and some former members, and some people that in the community that would have an interest in the decisions made. And one is that they can be heavy-handed in just what you talked about right there, like, fine first instead of talk. And so then that just sent up red flags to me. What are we looking at here in Santee that this would be our direction? Because I don't agree with that. I would rather work with the business and not use the heavy hand of ACPD to penalize first. So I guess that's my comment about that. Because a lot of these issues relate to the district that I live in and represent, I would ask that I could be involved if there's some meetings related to this with the staff. I would ask that I can be involved in, not all of them obviously, but some of them, just to give some feedback and have some better understanding.
I think one of the concerns I would have is, for instance, if at Big Rock Park, we went in there because it's south of Mission Gorge Road, which looks like it's indicated as a lower income area. Okay, we go in there, we need to rehabilitate some of the fields, and we put, let's say, fertilizer out, and it creates an odor that we get complaints on. So somebody could call and complain to APCD, and then next thing you know, a city could be getting fined, or let's say maybe it was the ballparks down there in a different agency or whatever, without, and a temporary, unhappy client, so to speak, doesn't require a fine. And I think that's where you're going at, is find out who put it there, and we're going to fine them for putting the manure out. Doesn't.
I mean, it's even more, I literally don't have an understanding of what that sentence means to the city of Santee, what we're talking about. I don't know what those, even what you said to me, or what you read, I don't know what those types of buildings are in Santee. So I don't have a concept of this right now.
Could it be a trucking firm? Could it be,
I have no idea.
any,
Yeah, that's true. It could be a trucking firm. It could be.
I can give you one example that I dealt with a couple years back with APCD. So my residents around the landfill, they sent out Republic was required to send out a letter to all the residents because of a study they did in 2012. So there's an annual study at the landfill they have to do, and the Republic Service has certain mitigation things they have to do. They have to wet down the roads. They have all these different, mechanism of mitigation that they do to try to reduce all the air pollution and also the smells and stuff like that. Well, this study had to do with the carcinogens in the soil right there. So like my residents in Weston, for example, they all get this letter about the dirt and the soils have carcinogens in them. And they didn't even live there in 2012, but it was all within certain distance of the air. They created hysteria, by sending this letter out. And Marlene and I actually met with Neil over there and try to figure some of this stuff out. And I think you and I went there. Yeah, no, think about it, because it was a rainy day. It was a rainy day. We went there and stuff. But so they're supposed to do the study annually every year, and we haven't even got the study back from 2018. I think right now that's the last one that we have. We haven't even got the study back from that yet.
Correct. And so Jack Shue from the city of La Mesa, the outgoing council, well, I guess he's done now. Mm-hmm. He's the one that was in this position before. So I specifically asked him about that because some of my friends, got the same letter, and Santee Lakes is right there.
Right.
And he kind of chuckled. He said, yes, the study comes out and the data's already old. And then it's up to the property owner to notify people. And they drug their heels on it. So then it's just, as soon as you have a study and get the data, the communication should go out immediately. But obviously that's not the way it's working right now. So there's definitely, I'm learning, it's been a week, but there's definitely some issues there. So it just raised, a question to me. I'm trying to learn about what the role is, and then also not have overreach and have timely communication, things like that. I'm done.
Well, thank you. Anybody else?
I actually just have one question. Councilwoman brought it up about page 15. So, Chief, it's actually more towards you or maybe even Carl, so it says FEMA flood hazard zone, right? Look at this map here. But that dark blue area, that floodway area, Chief, can we change this to the FEMA fire hazard zone? Because really that's what this dark blue area is to us as a city of Santee, right? You talk about it's a flood zone, obviously because of the water that runs through it, coming off, the mountains up in Julian and obviously going through a city. But I think we're beating a little bit here, but this is our fire hazard zone within the city of Santee, that 5.5 miles.
A secondary overlay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we did address that through our FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program application. What you are describing is exactly what we outlined as far as the existential threat that exists to our communities, and it literally is outlined in red for that grant submission.
You say existential, obviously in 2007, we had fire come over from Eucalyptus Hills and Poway, and people see this grass fire coming over the hill, and they get freaked out because, it's coming towards Santee. But this is right through the heart of our city. It is the most populated, most densely part of our city. If you reach out, 1,000 feet in each direction. I don't know what these buffer zones are. We go 100, 150 feet around our homes, but really we need to be going that. And, obviously it's exacerbated by what we saw in Los Angeles last week with this inferno rolling through Altadena and Pacific Palisades with these winds and stuff like that. But there could be catastrophic to the city of Santee if we did have, these once in a whatever Santa Ana winds, right? Is that fair?
That is fair. And, these are challenging decisions to make. For instance, we're going to receive an updated fire hazard severity zone map from CAL FIRE. And it is going to be crippling for residents that are within that zone, those zones, to be able to get insurance. I personally am one of those types of residents. I don't live in Santee, but I am impacted equally because of the designation of those zones. So it is a little challenging also for us to put forward-facing information that further outlines other areas as extremely fire hazard severity zones, because there would be a trade-off, council member. And so I am complete agreement with what we need to do and the threat, but I wish that
It's fair.
I wish I had a little bit more authority and a lot more money.
My home's within 500 feet of this fire hazard zone, and my homeowner's insurance got canceled last year. I had to find a new policyholder to carry mine, because of the location of it. Just as like you're talking about, we put these maps out, we put these things out, but it's actually hindering or hurting some of our residents too. When we have, a AAA rating of safety in this city, and it actually helps our residents for their policy in some cases too, right? When you get to the other areas, I guess, that are outside of these maps.
Insurance companies don't care.
Well, it's getting worse, but it used to be like that, right, Ron? It mattered where you lived and what's your city's safety plans
way
and
back
stuff.
when it was
mattered.
100 feet, insurance companies require 100 feet.
Yeah.
Then they went to 500 feet.
Right.
Then they
Now
went
it's
to
1,000.
1,000 feet.
Right.
Now it's like, sorry, we're not even going to insure Santee. So
You might get insured if you're in Colorado, though. Here's what, let me ask this question. Is time of the essence on this to be adopted?
Nope.
Okay. If the council doesn't mind, what I like to do is send this back to have quite a bit of your questions answered, and maybe even some definitions to come to us so that it's we can understand it a little bit better. Because you read through this and you go, okay, well, I think I understand what that means. But then if you get into the weeds on it, then, no pun intended, then you don't necessarily kind of get the full picture. Does that work for you guys?
The last update was what, 2011? You said? So 14 years. And so to that, some of the language in here refers to something that was going to happen, several years ago, but it doesn't apply today because something else happened, right? So when's the next time we update it after this? Is it the frequency now because of the state mandates? Is it kind of like this other?
You'll see when I do my
okay.
legislative update.
Get ahead.
No. But basically, Sandy can answer this specific question, but there always are going to be new mandates, including in the safety element. There's already a new one.
So the only people that were here before when we did this was the vice mayor and I. Yeah, that was a long time ago. And if you can remember all these things and all these terms, you're doing a whole lot better than I am. But because I
give kudos to the councilwoman for reading all this over the weekend. I didn't have that much time.
I don't even read that fast, period. So do I need to make a motion to lay that on the table or just say bring it back?
Just direction. The only reason you do a motion is if we knew when you could bring it back and do
Okay.
it so we don't have to renotice it, but I don't think we know that answer, so I think
Okay,
it's just best.
let's do that, but let's try and keep it timely, though. And but I think I like to hear some more of those answers and a little bit more detailed and with definitions.
can I make a quick comment on the MTS thing?
Sure.
Okay. Number 2 is promote access to public facilities and services. Collaborate with the MTS to establish and maintain and increase frequency routes. Back in, I think it was 2018, the mayor and I, MTS was going to eliminate the west route. I think that's 834. And the mayor and I got together and were able to convince them to keep 834, bus route 834. They moved it from exactly where they want it to go, which is Prospect, over to Mission Gorge. And so Prospect has kind of been left blind for the last 7 years. And they have to walk over there to Mission Gorge to catch a bus now. So that's been a problem. But they went from about every hour service to about every half an hour service now. So the whole route goes, it's a lot better service. It's not great, but it's a lot better service. The other one was the north, coming up to north, up to right before City Hall. They also did, that's the 832, I think. They did the same with that too. So rather than having, we've extended service, we've extended times or shortened times. It's nothing like the blue line or anything like that. The whole reason we put the copper line in was to actually help service down the line, because people would show up here with the MTS green line and they would have to take their break and it'd send everything backwards. So they did make it the copper line, and it's a single route back and forth now just between that and Elkhorn Station. So they could probably, there is a stop at, call it Gillespie Field. It used to be Weld Avenue. Gillespie Field is closest to Sharp Re-Steely, other than down in Town Center. And so that's about the closest they could do. I don't see MTS wanting to run a bus service between there. I could see Sharp wanting to do that maybe, if we could sweet talk them into it. But other than that, it's we are on the hook. We got $125 million from the state to stay alive. We're one of the better funded transit services around, but we're still going to go broke the way it's going in about, they're saying 4 years, I'm saying 3. So it's drastic measures are going to come for the whole state. The whole, New York is in bad shape. Everybody's in bad shape. And transit is not making money anywhere. And so it's a problem everywhere. And that's something that will have to be addressed by everybody, just so you know.
Okay, let's do that then. We'll bring that back at a later date. All right, that takes us to item number 9, which is a public hearing and introduction and first reading of an amendment to the urgency ordinance enacting an essential housing program to boost housing production and improve housing affordability in order to achieve the goals set forth in the city's housing element 6 cycle 2021-2029, and determining the amendment exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. Mr. Haggerty.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. In August of 2021, the council enacted an urgency ordinance that created the Essential Housing Program for Santee. That program was designed to address the significant lack of housing and a declared housing emergency both in the city, in the county, and statewide. In 2024, in conjunction with the lawsuit challenging the approval of the Bonita Ranch project, the Superior Court identified ambiguities in the court's view regarding the legal source of the city's program. In December of 2024, the council directed staff to take steps to address the court's decision, including the perceived ambiguities in the urgency ordinance. The amendments presented to you tonight implement that council's direction by clarifying that the city's program is a local ordinance authorized by state density bonus law, specifically Government Code Section 65915, Subdivision N, that creates a method to increase housing supply and combat the declared housing crisis. Our recommendation to you tonight is that you introduce and conduct the first reading of the ordinance amending the urgency ordinance and set the second reading and adoption for February 12th, 2025. Be happy to answer any questions.
I do not have any speaker slips. Council comment?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion or any discussion? Okay, please vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. That takes us to item 10, which is City Council Policy on Annexation Policy Direction.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Tonight, staff is asking for direction related to a City Council policy on annexation. For background, February 22nd of 2023, Council established a policy to consider annexation of West Hills Parkway and surrounding parcels. We have interest related to controlling the City of San Diego-owned intersection of West Hills Parkway and Mass Boulevard. We also want to prevent any impacts from the Sycamore Canyon landfill and ensure that future development meets City of Santee standards. There's currently a request before the City of San Diego to amend the zoning of approximately 7.2 acres of a 29-acre property in the East Elliott Community Plan from open space to residential very low. On these two maps, you can see our jagged boundary on that left-hand side between the City of San Diego and the City of Santee. So we focused in on the West Hills Parkway, Mast Boulevard area. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the planned zoning for both of the different cities, which gives you an idea of at least what conceptually both cities are looking for in that specific area. We also looked at the jurisdictional boundaries near Castle Rock and the Weston property. And you can see in pink on the left-hand side is the 29-acre property that I had mentioned is currently before the City of San Diego. On the right-hand side is the zoning. So again, you can see what our planned land uses are between the two different jurisdictions. So tonight, based off of the current request that is before the City of San Diego, we wanted to talk to you and make sure that we as staff understood the direction more clearly. So we posited two questions. Does council wish to continue to maintain a priority to annex West Hills Parkway and the surrounding parcels? If so, what are the surrounding parcels that are involved? And then the second question, getting to this most current request, does council wish to modify its position regarding future residential development, such as this proposed American Pacific Investments property in the East Elliott area that cannot be fully served by the City of San Diego? So that concludes my presentation. We're here to hear your thoughts and if you have any questions.
Speaker slips?
No speakers.
Thank you. All right, then. You know what? I'm going to go first on this one, if I can. I know that I'm one of the folks that kind of spearheaded this a while back, and I know these things are not done overnight because there's a lot of work involved. Sometimes there's a lot of cost involved. One of my concerns, obviously, was up there north of West Hills Parkway. I had heard at that time, you know, the rumors that there was going to be a development perhaps up there, and the question is how they're getting in and out because it's a landlocked piece of property. How much are they going to use of that property? And the fact is that, excuse me, that it's very similar to what the Weston project was. And I know we fought that project for nearly 10 years. We ended up losing in court over that, and they finally were able to go forward with it. It has been a benefit to the City of Santee, quite frankly. We've met an awful lot of nice people, good folks that live up in that area. I was also concerned about the fact that we have the intersection of Mass Boulevard and West Hills Parkway, where we have many complaints over the intersection there and how it's controlled, and the fact that is it's not in the City of Santee, that we don't really have any control over it. You go a little bit further to the west and then you're in Caltrans right away again. so we have some issues there. If anybody knows the West Hills Parkway, they know that there was a project done called Treviso there at one time, used to be the old Kmart parking lot, store. And there's a block wall that goes all the way around it. And on the west side, the city jurisdiction is that block wall. So the parkway, the sidewalk, the street, all the way to the west, as far as and beyond camp, the Cuimaca camp there, it belongs to the city of San Diego. So when we get complaints about sidewalks that are buckled, vegetation that is unkempt, things that are left behind by transients, like shopping carts, bicycles, other things. It's not within our jurisdiction to get it. The road is in a terrible condition. We have no way to compel the city of San Diego to make corrections to that roadway. If it belongs to the city of Santee, we can take care of that, make sure that because we have an awful lot of, Santee residents that use that street, and we need to make them safe. Because people in San Diego don't necessarily care if people in Santee are safe. That's why they don't look at the road, and it's way out of town for them, basically. The sheriff, they go down that road and they have to police it because I can't remember the last time I ever saw a San Diego police officer on that road doing any kind of traffic enforcement or anything else. My guess, if there's a traffic collision, they have to come out and take the traffic accident report, but we're still going to be there to spend the money to help them out. And many of our volunteers probably will be out there helping with traffic direction because they're just not going to send any more than one accident investigation bureau officer, most likely. And then also, things that I'm interested in is that great big parcel of land that's there. How much of that is a mitigation for vegetation? How much of it can be used? And if so, is there something that the city of Santee could use it for that would enhance our community? Could we put more businesses down there, for instance, so that we can relieve the congestion in the downtown area of Santee so that people can go to maybe a grocery store on the west end of town or any other kind of business that might be really good to have down there. They've redone the gas station down there, or put in a gas station and whatnot, the store down there where and that's a really nice area. A lot of people are saying, why can't we get more things like that down there? So we just can't do it if we don't have any kind of access or jurisdiction over the property in case there's a property owner that wants to do something. And not only that, but the area that is, in the jurisdiction of San Diego that is on the golf course, well, that just doesn't make sense to me. Why would you take a finger and jut out along the river and call that San Diego when they do nothing there to help us? If there's a problem with, once again, weeds, trash, and other things, they don't really do anything. We have to go out there and do it. Golf course has to go out there and do it. So there are so many reasons why we should be looking at those portions of the around our city that we can make a better decision on for the people that live here than what a absentee landlord like the city of San Diego is in most of this case on that end of town. So that's one reason why I was very interested in this, and I am interested in going forward with this. So anybody else?
Yeah.
Vice Mayor.
Just like last time, just like with Weston, that was something I actually did support the annexation of that because it just makes sense. The city of San Diego, as we've learned over years of fighting them on the project, and to begin with, all we're going to be able to do is delay the inevitable, which is what we did. We kind of knew it that was all we're going to be able to do, and made a lot of comments. We won't provide public services. We won't provide water. The reality is that's not even a possibility. We have mutual aid agreement that requires us to do those things. They know it. We know it. It's a posturing thing that, frankly, is just going to be a waste of time. So I'd rather, if we could be at the table. I'm sorry?
In money?
Oh, yeah. I'd rather be at the table helping to maybe make these homes a little better, like using the minimum lot size that we do in Santee versus what they do in San Diego, actually having real streets and sidewalks in there instead of curbs. That's and on one side only type of thing. I'd rather work with them on those types of things and then annex it over, because we are going to be the ones stuck with providing the public safety no matter what. So there's no way around it. We might as well get the property tax revenue that comes with annexation, being that we're going to be providing the services regardless. So as far as the parcel over to the west of the golf course, that the big parcel right off the 52 there, I'm also interested in that, but that comes along with West Hills Parkway. West Hills Parkway, I'm not interested in that unless San Diego's going to do something with the underground piping issue that we already know about. It's going to be a major cost, but two, it's going to be an accident. I mean, there's an accident waiting to happen. I don't want the liability of that brought onto the city of Santee when it's something that we already know about. If it was something we brought in all at one time and we didn't do our due diligence, but frankly we have done our due diligence, and that's a liability that the city of Santee should not be taking on unless there was some hell of a sweetheart deal on the other side that would allow us to gain financially if we did take on that repair ourselves. But in the long run, we now own the land. It's not just annexing into our zip code, but actually ownership of the land that we could then sell, that down the line would pay for itself, and those types of things would make more sense. But until then, I have a feeling that big parcel is going to be part and parcel with taking on West Hills Parkway and the liability that's faced right there. So until that's taken care of or resolved one way or the other, I wouldn't be interested in signing up for any of that liability. But as far as the residential portion goes, yes, I definitely want to stay on top of that. I want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make it seem more like Santee rather than San Diego, as far as the look feel of the project itself, because it is going to eventually be part of our community. So I'd like to see it fit in better with some of our building codes that we utilize rather than San Diego's. Thank you.
I've got a question. So what do we know about the storm drains over there? Because that was my concern too that Rob brought up.
We do know some of them are corrugated metal pipe. They need repairs, just like the similar issues we have. But we did, Steve Miller in our capital division did an estimate of the total cost of what we thought the repairs were to bring it to a brand new standard. There's no curb gutter sidewalk on one side. The bridge decks needs repairs. There's lots of things that are associated with it. And I think in the report, our estimate was $12-ish million worth of repairs that it would take to bring it up to the standard that's in Santee.
Okay. And that's something, again, we have to work on to, because they'll have no problem giving it to us to pay the bill. And they're broke, so they need to figure out something. I'm okay with proceeding with this. I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a couple questions. Well, is this motion stuff, or is it just policy question number one? Okay.
We're seeking direction, and at the right time, I'd like to make a couple comments, but I don't want to interrupt the discussion.
Okay. Thank you for the backstory on what I knew as Castle Rock when I worked for the Water District, but Weston. The perspective, if the direction is, which I do agree with, let's work with them so we can get City of Santee standards built out there as much as possible, but also involve the Water District, because I definitely know there were a lot of issues in construction with the sewer systems. And matter of fact, I think their HOA up at Weston is responsible for maintaining something related to sewer up there, because I know there was a leak because their HOA didn't clean it. So things like that we wouldn't allow in Santee are allowed because we had to annex versus do it the normal way. Or we shouldn't allow in Santee anyway. And so Padre Dam should definitely, or whatever essential utilities that would be part of this annex deal that might need to go before their board or their council, they should be involved in the conversation as well. I did read in the staff report that the West Hills Parkway, not including the San Diego River section, would cost between $12 and $14 million to get up to Santee standards, and that there's also a major gas pipeline located in West Hills Parkway. I'm not sure if that was put in there because there's a concern with the gas pipeline or if it's just noting it. But that, to me, the only value of taking on the liability of West Hills Parkway, besides, yes, I definitely agree, we need to pave it and keep it up to standards, at least the road. But if there's that big piece of land over there that we could actually develop and do something with, then it would be of value to the city of Santee. But I spoke with our city manager about this today, and she said it's protected open space. So is it? What is that land?
Wait, can I make sure that I understand? Are you talking about the area, can you see my pointer? No, west of West Hills Parkway where it says City of San Diego and it's light green and yellow, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, where they set up.
Yeah, so that's not part of the City of San Diego's MSCP. The other property, the 29 acres that's being proposed that is near Weston, is in their MSCP entirely. So here it's zoned as, and I actually did a cheat sheet, sorry, here you go, nerd alert. So it's zoned as CC 1-3, which is commercial, but it's also zoned as RS 1-8 residential. So I'm not an expert in the city of San Diego's interpretation, but I did want to look at the zoning so that when you look at this map, you can see where you've got the yellow, which is that CC automobile centered commercial development, which is immediately adjacent to Mission Gorge, and then the area that's north of it, which has got that residential low density zoning.
Go back to the map. I'm sorry.
Sure.
So
yeah.
the green. So I see the yellow and then the green hash.
That's the city of San Diego.
So
part.
that could be developed for resident. Okay.
It could be. It's currently. It is currently designated as low residential.
And so my question would be, if there was a deal to be made, can we zone that for whatever we want? Do we have to follow this? If it becomes our property, do we have to follow the city's
Part of
zoning?
the annexation process generally requires you to pre-zone.
Yes.
Okay.
But it doesn't have to match the existing zoning of the city of San Diego.
Okay.
Be your discretion on what the zoning would be.
Correct.
Sandy, is there 3 parcels there basically is what we're looking at? Is that?
You're going to make me put on my old lady glasses.
So the yellow along Mission Gorge there, and then going north, there's a dark line.
Yeah.
I want to say, is that one parcel? And then you have a little strip in between the next parcel that says City of San Diego that goes all the way to the Caltrans boundary of the freeway, right?
Yeah,
So is
and
that
so,
2
yeah, you're right.
parcels?
Like, it looks like there
Basically?
might be 3, right? So
Right.
you've got the one that's split zoned between the yellow and the green.
Right.
And then you've got the center one, right? And then you've got this other one that's almost entirely where it says City of San Diego.
And then lastly, there's one more, the triangular one on the other side of the freeway between West Hills Parkway, and there's antennas on there now, right?
Yeah,
So
the gray
it's-
lines are parcel lines.
So it's 3 or 4 parcels we're talking about ultimately that is in that vicinity, right?
Yeah, and I'm
And-
unaware of ownership, so I'm not sure if they're
Understood.
publicly or privately owned.
Carl, that maybe you know that. So where the 52 symbol is, that parcel obviously runs along the golf course there, and that's one entire parcel all the way to the trail system.
I think it's a couple different smaller parcels, but it's all within the city of San Diego jurisdiction.
Right.
I guess one caveat that I'll add, just because I'm personally knowledgeable, as part of the Groundwater Sustainability Act, I was on the committee with the city of San Diego. And there's a long history on the San Diego River for Pueblo water rights. The city of San Diego owns all the water rights in the San Diego River. About the only place they can extract that water is within that zone. That's where the sand zone and layers are, where they could extract it. So that's of particular interest to the city of San Diego. They've indicated during the groundwater sustainability process that that's an area they would like to keep because that's one area where they own the property and can extract the water. They don't own any other property in the San Diego River in this basin other than this.
Right. Now, that was my understanding too. Obviously, the old pump station that they used to own, now Padre Dam owns it, you know, it goes all along there, but that is part of the issue because talking to their...
Well, and I also know there's other issues too with the antennas, only because related to the 52. The 52 alignment was actually aligned around those antennas because of the significance of those antennas. They have massive grounding rods underneath them that extend and splay out. And in fact, the piece underneath the city of San Diego is also part of the antenna site as well. I don't know the status and use and long-term viability of it. It's not the same as like the KCBQ site or the other site by Walker Trails. Those were different antennas. So just be mindful, we're not really in tune and we're doing more research on that.
Sure, and that's actually what I was going. So a couple years ago when we did this in our council retreat and looked at, you know, called a priority item, my understanding at that time, it wasn't necessarily like we wanted to annex it, you know, we wanted to look into it, right? It was to look into the annexation of Westfield Parkway, look into the adjoining parcels or surrounding parcels in there. And we, at that time, we obviously knew about some of the infrastructure issues, you know, on there too. But it's going, getting that research and, you know.
But a big reason for that was because of the lack of control of traffic patterns on West Hills Parkway.
Right, I mean, we get
because
complaints.
We can't do anything about that.
Like you mentioned, every average citizen doesn't realize that West Hills Parkway is not in the city of Santee.
Right.
You drive, and so when we put our signage up there, I always laugh, you know, you got the little sign that says Santee city limits, and all the boundaries are repaved. So down on Graves or over on, you know, El Nepal or into Carlton Oaks, we put this little sign that says city limits, you know, so try to get people to, but we always get complaints, like you said, with the sidewalks or the road conditions, and then obviously the intersection up there with the landfill. And, you know, obviously the landfill at some point has to do those improvements there, but once they hit those matrix that they're required to, we all know about, but.
Yeah, so that, and that's my point, is that what you're saying about is that we originally asked, let's look into this, and I want to continue looking into it, because if, you know, like if we do annex that one area and it is, say, commercially viable or residentially viable, it definitely pays for a lot of the infrastructure that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So Sandag was going to put that trail in. How would that affect the trail?
Well, you know what?
Now it's Santee versus San Diego.
Right, and the difference would be is if we did get a development going there, condition them just like we do the other home builders or commercial business owners to complete that portion in that area. So, I mean, it's a real benefit, really, when you think about it.
Sandag was going to cement it in, weren't they?
Well, who knows what?
Who knows what they're going to do. So additionally, guys, I just wanted so the Mission Trails Regional Task Force, there have been a concerted effort to acquire more and more parcels north of the 52 to absorb those into the Mission Trails itself, and even over towards East Elliott. So actually the other parcel that we're referring to there's a lot of private homeowner or private ownership parcels there that the city of San Diego has been trying to acquire to absorb it into Mission Trails, which only helps their open space, you know, numbers and stuff they have to hit for the mitigation. So all around here, even the parcel we're talking about has been approached for, you know, sale to Mission Trails or the city of San Diego, which would be obviously put into Mission Trails. But you can see all those little parcels that are around, you know, the west and between the landfill and there, and a lot of them are not buildable, you know, really, as we know. So it makes sense to have a more open space there. But who knows? And until you have a willing seller, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Right.
Sean?
But we just acquired 108 acres, I want to say, for Mission Trails that they just purchased. So.
Thank you, Mayor and Vice Mayor and Council. I guess I would like the opportunity to provide Council more information, particularly with regard to the residential development, because, you know, having lived through the Weston process and the Castle Rock process, I do think that our situation and our ability to influence this area is a little different than it was then. I think we're, because of the way we reacted and the positive, kind of making the best of the worst situation that we were in then, I do think it puts us in a different position. And the way, if you look at what's attached to your agenda item, is actually the Planning Commission resolution. And they recognize in their staff report that they can't service this area. So that was different than the approach last time. It was definitely more of like, we're going to shove this down your throat. Yeah. And so I think there's maybe some more information that before you give us specific direction to sort of alter our current course, I want to make sure that you have all of that information. And so maybe it sounds like you're going this way anyway, that you just want us to continue to analyze these things. Right. As part of that analysis, I do think I work with the city manager and Santee to provide some additional information about that particular process before you make any final determination about it.
Right. Sounds good.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, there's two questions for the City Council tonight. One is related to these northern parcels off of the end of Castle Rock Weston. The other is related to the parcels next to West Hills Parkway. From the discussion, it sounds like you would like staff to continue to look into both areas.
That's correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to item number 11.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I want to make something really clear here. Yeah. My answer to your question is yes, but with the caveat of two different things. One, the annexation of the residential development. That's to be at the table to make sure that it hopefully meets more of our guidelines, being that we will have to provide safety services there and public services there. The other one is to pursue only given the caveat of we've got to be released of all liability or made whole on the cost of that of the known deficiencies in that property.
Correct, Vice Mayor. We would certainly pursue getting more additional information before any action was taken in that regard. We'd need council direction.
I'm not looking to
there.
make any deals.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I just want, you have no rights to make any deals.
That's right. I mean, that's correct. Okay, we're 11. Pavement maintenance workshop, fiscal year 2025-26, and finding the action is not a project subject to the California Environmental Quality Act.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Staff is before you tonight with a pavement management workshop. This is an annual occurrence we're going to be bringing forward to City Council prior to our paving programs as directed by Council in the past. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about the funding, where we've been, what we've done, talk about the pavement management report, and some of the recommendations and priorities that Council has set in the past. Just giving you a little pavement management report history. All the way back in February 9th of 2022, staff presented the results of our latest pavement management report at that time in a workshop. And, you know, the point of a pavement management report is to do an analysis of the condition of all the pavement network, and that helps staff make recommendations for resurfacing. Those recommendations then we use, and they're in a zone grid type situation, so we get economy of scale, so we can bid and award projects with similar type treatments. The report determines what's most important to us is the pavement condition index. We call it the PCI for all 507 of the streets in the city of Santee. At the time of the last report, our PCI was a 65. 65 is not ideal. Our goal is to try and get us to a 70, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The other key important part of this is, of the funding we do use, Transnet in particular, which is the half-cent sales tax measure that Sandag collects and then distributes portions to Santee and all the other cities. and RMRA, road maintenance and rehab account, is part of the gas tax, or referred to as gas tax, as part of Senate Bill 1. And these are used for street resurfacing, and they have a requirement for us to have a pavement management report that we report for transparency, so that they are assured that we're using the funding in the best and most economical and maximized benefit. Pavement management reports are typically done every 4 to 5 years, and the plan is to update the pavement management report coming this next fiscal year, so we can get a standing on where we've been on all the money we've been spending and where we're at, and kind of look at how we're moving forward, and if we are getting to that PCI of 70 that where our goal was established at. Talking about that a little bit more, the annual funding for that to get to a PCI of 70, the 2022 report, we had an annual budget of about $2.9 million to keep the PCI of 65, meaning our streets wouldn't get any worse, but they're not going to get any better. It was estimated at that time we'd need about $4.5 million per year over the next 5 years to get our PCI, or pavement condition, to a 70. 70 is ideal. We'd all love to have 100. That would be a brand new street every year. That's not possible. A 70 gets us into a position of maintenance instead of rehabilitation. That's where we want to be, where we're doing slurry seals and crack fills, not rehabilitating overlays and those sorts of things. This current fiscal year budget coming up, the estimated, again, I say estimated because we don't have all the projections in yet, is a little over $2 million. And with the payment management condition report back in 2022, City Council realized that we needed to spend a lot more money to get us to that 70. And City Council started allocating general funds and ARPA. ARPA is the American Rescue Plan Act. Sorry. Thanks, Nick. And we've used that money over the last several years. To put it in kind of perspective, from 2022 through 2024, we've spent an average of $4.4 million, very close to our average. And we'd love to get higher than that, but it depends on bidding environment and available funding, and it's not always going to be perfectly 4.5. But on average, we're getting very close to that goal. I kind of want to talk a little bit about the impacts of some of that. Since 2022, City Council has allocated just over $7 million, including the current fiscal year, of general fund and an additional $1 million of ARPA. These additional funding has resurfaced an additional 23 streets from fiscal year 22 to 25, and we're proposing 2 new streets to be surfaced with available funding in this coming fiscal year, which is the summer for fiscal year 25-26. The amount of the general funds available for this next year, fiscal year, is $2.71 million. 2.4 is allocated, and then we have a small carryover from the current fiscal year of funds that we couldn't expend over contracting limits of $310,000 that we're planning to spend as much as we possibly can this summer. The impact of this extra money and what we've been doing over the last years has been pretty significant. Trying to put it in perspective, general fund and ARPA funds over the last 3 years, not including the current fiscal year, was $4.3 million total. RMRA and Transnet was $7.7 for a total of $12 million spent over the 3 years. That resurfaced 126 streets, or a better way to look at it, because a street is just a street, it's a name, they're all different sizes and shapes. It's over 5.6 million square feet of asphalt and repairs. Kind of giving you an idea of those 507 streets in the city, we have a total of 28.5 million square feet. So over the last 3 years, we've repaved 20% of all the streets within the city. That's never happened in the city's history. Here's kind of a list of all those streets that were done, kind of breaking them down. If you're interested in black, it's showing all the Transnet and RMRA funds. There's zones all over in every district. General funds are shown in blue, kind of scattered around, and ARPA is in red here and here. For those that like graphics, this is kind of a graphic representation of the funding. Looking back over here to the left, I know it's hard to read, but it's more just to demonstrate the total funding. Back in 2020, we spent just over $1 million. 2021, 2.5-ish. When council started allocating significant general funds after the payment management report, We're close to 4 million, up to 5 million, 3.5 million, and then this current fiscal year looking closer to 5 million. Currently, right now, we do not have any allocated general funds for 2026. So those are things we'll be talking about with update to the payment management report to see where we fell and what our numbers are going to need to be, looking at available funding and budgets at that time. Now I kind of want to switch gears a little bit and talk about some of the priorities. The key piece to this is I've talked about ARPA and general fund. General fund and ARPA has more discretion. Those are areas where we've used council priorities to do streets within the city, because the RMRA and the gas tax I've talked about, we have to program that a year in advance, and it has certain restrictions for how we have to report and program them, and they need to follow our payment management report as guidelines. So here's kind of a list of all those streets. I know, again, it's a tough map, but everything in blue that you see around this map is stuff that's been completed as council priorities. Stuff that's in green, this is what we're going to be recommending for this fiscal year. And then what's in red is all the remaining priorities that council's established over the last 3 pavement management reports, our pavement workshops. And kind of give you an estimate of cost, here's a list of all those that were shown on the previous map as priorities that still aren't completed. You know, and without getting into details, we're identifying Fanita Drive and Mission Gorge as highlighted, and we're also requesting a crack fill, and I'll talk about it in a minute. But there's $15.8 million of streets that we currently don't have funding to do that are priorities that council's identified.
Carl, how many square feet is that? Ooh. You brought it up in the previous slide, so.
Toby, do you have any idea what that is? That might be a ballpark we might not be able
I'm
to
totally
get.
messing with you because you brought a different matrix to us, so.
Yeah.
Ready.
25%, there you go.
I was thinking more along linear feet.
So switching gears a little bit, again, we want to talk about more about the recommendations between the funding sources. And the first thing I'm going to focus on is Transnet and RMRA. Again, just reiterating, we have about $2.2 million, including the carryover and again, estimated funds, because these aren't realized. We'll know exactly what they are closer to bid time. And that includes Zone BH, which has 11 streets for $1.5 million, Cuyamaca Street, Airport Vista to SR 52. This is the last piece of Cuyamaca Street between Mission Gorge and Southern City boundaries to finish. Only reason why we didn't finish it is we ran short on money. We needed to get Caltrans encroachment permits. This is the section in Caltrans right away.
I have a question on that. Okay, so then on Cuyamaca, between Prospect and Weld, or Weld and Prospect, that's El Cajon?
Where the asphalt stops, that's the city limit right before the trolley crossing. Doesn't go all the way to Weld.
So between Prospect and Weld, that's...
Between Prospect and Weld, there's a short piece that's in the city of San Diego, and then after that, that's El Cajon.
So that's City of San Diego.
Or not City of San Diego, City of El Cajon.
So you know where they did that, what is it?
The new building?
Yeah, the big, huge.
That's in the city of El Cajon.
Wasn't there a requirement to fix that road after all that construction, and SDG&E had a break and something there, and it was shut down forever? And
I think that would be a great question for a
city
of El
manager to
Cajon.
ask another city manager? Okay,
Yeah.
that's fair.
Yeah. And that's part of what Dustin brought up. That's why we have signs that show city limits, so that people, when they call, we can clearly say, here's a delineation, you're now in El Cajon. That's not us.
Let's just tell El Cajon we're comparing them to the city of San Diego, and they better do what's right.
Should we send a letter to El Cajon telling him to fix
Steve
their
actually
street?
Steve said he has some information to share on that as well.
When the gas line reconstruction work was going on with SDG&E, the city of El Cajon is aware of that section of roadway, but like us, they wanted to make sure that all the utility work was getting done ahead of time. I don't know if that section is in this year's CIP program with them to repave, but it's in a high priority list to get done.
And then finally, on the RMRA recommendations is Fanita Drive from Mission Gorge Road to Prospect Avenue. Again, this is another piece that we've done periodic repairs and patching and crack fill. We're going to try and finish that up with this last contract with the available funding. Now with the general fund recommendations, like I said, the estimated general funds is 2.7 million, which is 2.4 and a 310 carryover. We're recommending a citywide crack sealing program. And again, that's going to crack seal just in advance. And what we're going to do is we're recommending bidding a separate crack fill contract with economy of scale so that we get a better bid price. It's going to do Cuyamaca and, or not Cuyamaca, which one's Toby? I'm sorry. Fanita and Mission Gorge. And then we wanted to do Mass Boulevard as preventative from Fanita all the way to the western city limits. Again, we want to protect and do a little crack fill on some cracks we're identifying in advance to protect it before it starts blowing up where those cracks get water infiltration in. And again, gives us economy of scale. We got 3 bigger projects to do crack fill, and that's what our recommendation is, in addition to, as I mentioned, Fanita Drive and Mission Gorge Road. Again, Mission Gorge Road from Rancho Fanita Drive to Father Junipero Serra, which is the turnoff to go to the Mission Trails Park. It's in really bad shape. We were kind of holding off a little bit doing that because there's been multiple developments in that section happening, and the advanced water purification was going to be coming through that section. It's getting to the point now, as council has known and brought up to us as a priority, we need to take care of it. It's going to be very expensive, $2 million, because it is a kind of a full removal and replacement of asphalt layer. So that's our recommendation.
But is the AWP project still going through there? After this
Let me bring Steve up and explain a little bit about what AWP is going to do through there.
So the AWP project is we don't have a definitive schedule yet. They're going to be coming in about a year down the road. But that segment of pipeline is it's more of like a jack and bore style work. What they're going to do is it's not an open cut like what we saw running down Mass Boulevard. They're actually going to intercept an existing pipeline in the ground in sporadic pits and then basically feed new pipe through it.
Yeah, it's the one that goes through Mission Trails. They're going from there down through Mission Trails.
Yeah. So they will have a pit located kind of near Aubrey Glen, which we have been in talks with them saying if we go through and pave this, you're going to have to resurface full lane width to lane width in this area, which they're aware of. Because we're at the point with this segment of Mission Gorge, if we keep pushing this 2 or 3 more years, you know, a 2-inch grind and overlay, which is what we're looking at, is now going to become a 4-inch or 6-inch. And so by delaying it, the cost to the city to reconstruct the portions that's out of their limits skyrockets. And so we're recommending doing that. We have worked closely with AWP staff, identifying where those pits are and saying, look, if we come in here and pave it, you're going to be going full width. They acknowledge that. It's no real additional pavement to their project because of the work that they had to do already. But what we're trying to do is not let that roadway get further where we're coming back to city council and saying, well, we delayed it 2 years and it's another $1 million to us. So we're really at a place where it's the business decision of we really need to do this now.
Right, we delayed it already, and with the understanding that, and now the AWP's, pretty behind. So, right, it's so bad.
Yep.
Well, it's advanced.
Huh?
It's advanced.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the road. That's, yeah, it's behind, but the road's really bad, and we're behind schedule on what we wanted to do.
And they have been working well with staff on the limits of where, when they trench, you're going to go full lane width, and that they recognize it, and they have been agreeing to follow and repair everything we've been requesting them to do.
Okay.
I can tell you the company they're using for their asphalt or street improvements, I think they're doing a pretty good job. It's flat, it's level, it's not bumpy.
We have been very happy with the paving. It's actually being completed by TC Construction, who is located in town, and obviously they make sure they have a priority of, they've always been known of doing very good paving work, but it's their home, it's their backyard.
They just need to do the other side of the street, though, that's all.
I would love to try to find a way to get them to do another $3 million in paving, but I think I've stretched the limits of what I can request for them to resurface.
I'll make a call tomorrow.
Great.
I don't know if that'll do anything, but I'll say, I'm the mayor, I want it. And they'll tell me where to go. And so, okay.
Still got a couple more slides just to wrap it up. But,
All right.
just in summary, here's kind of a summary of everything that we've talked about. Again, we're looking at about $4.6 million estimated, and the estimated budget when the revenues come in is around 4.9. We're a little below it. We don't know how the bidding climate, so that's why we do it that way. And again, here's just kind of a location where all those streets are in the recommendation on the map. And with that, we're just looking for your support to approve our recommendations for using crack fill and all those streets we've listed, and or giving us other priorities and things that have come up, and we can take them down, and for this next update, start doing estimates and looking at them for next fiscal year, building them into our priority list and evaluating them and creating recommendations for next year as well. So with that, staff is available for any questions.
All right.
Killing me here. Anything?
First thing, I just want to say this wasn't planned until your little report right there. Thank you for the way you're looking at Mission Gorge. That's it adds another layer of confidence to us when we know that you're looking at it in that manner of, all right, if we don't, we've always held off on a number of street improvements because we know a development's going to happen, a new build's going to happen, the Sharp when it was going in, and the trucks coming in and out, and now the advanced water purification line going through. But at some point, you're right, it's going to give, and it's going to end up costing even more money for waiting than to require them to do the repairs. And maybe it's not 100% perfect, but it's going to be damn close, and it's going to be a hell of a lot better than it is right now. So thank you. That it does instill another level of confidence, and to me at least, to know that you guys are really looking that closely at it. So thank you. The other thing is, I'm just going to say it again. See it in the plans at some point, but the Three Oaks neighborhood, we're losing small children in the cracks in those neighborhoods. It's kids can't ride their bikes on them. They can't skateboard or. I'm not even joking. Seen basketballs go in different directions when they try and bounce them because it's the cracks are that bad in those on some of those streets.
Those are agility tests.
Yeah,
I was going to say it enhances their skills.
Fair enough. But I get complaints constantly on those 3 or 4 streets there, just how bad it is, and I'm on those streets, so I can see it, and I have a hard time telling them, yeah, I know, I see it, but I swear there's streets that are kind of worse when they're really not. It's just there are larger sections where you have the economy of scale that we've been able to take advantage of. But man, we got to get something done on those in the very, very, very near future here. Maybe 26 looking into that, but I'm
Would
good.
you like to add that to the priority list for review?
Well, it's already
on
there.
the priority
It's on
list.
there. It's in red, so it's on the list. It's just I want to make sure we are not kicking that can down the road too much further. And that's
Fill
it.
those potholes with smart cards, remember?
We did try that with my Mini Cooper back in the day on Fanita, but yeah, we've got to really do something there. It's gonna get serious in there at some
Didn't
point.
think I'd remember that.
That was a good one. That was one of my better jokes. Come on.
Yeah, I know. Long time ago. Yeah. Okay, I have a quick question. Any of our streets, main streets, are any of those considered like state highways or state routes or anything like that?
They call them kind of regionally significant roads. Mission Gorge in particular is our only major street. And we do reporting on that to the Federal Highway Administration because it's considered a major corridor. And those are the kind of streets, including Magnolia, and without getting into too much detail, we have RTCIP funds, which is the funding we collect from each house for SANDAG for regionally significant roads. Those are the kind of roads we can spend the money on because they are considered regionally significant, and we have to do reporting to the Federal Highway Administration and the state on what we're doing on those every year.
The reason why I asked that is because other than the SB1 type funding that you talked about earlier, is trying to find other pots of money, maybe federally from the Highway Administration or something, to do some of this work. Not that you probably haven't already thought about that, but I was thinking, wow.
Yeah, we're always looking for that. And they're kind of limited because a lot of that money goes to the TIP programs and the STIP programs that go through SANDAG. Primarily, their agencies do have the ability to apply for them, but our chances of getting them, like you approved earlier, the RAISE grant is kind of along those lines. We look into them. We try to shoot for things we think we can get with the limited time and money we have to expend, because they also have matching requirements as well that often make it difficult for us to apply for them.
Okay, I just wanted to throw that out there, so. Pretty much get the direction on that?
Carl, can we be clear? I mean, the way the staff recommendation is written, it talks about approval of the first item. Do you need a motion?
I don't think we really needed a motion. It's more of a workshop. I think we could have rewritten that a little bit better.
Okay.
We just wanted to get a feel if you guys are on board with what our recommendations are before we start moving forward with our full payment bid award packages.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, that takes us to item number 12, proposal to consider transitioning contract landscaping and custodial services in Area 1 to services supported by city employees. Nick?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council members. The item you have before you today is a comprehensive workshop to discuss the benefits of dissolving 2 park maintenance contracts. These contracts are the Landscape and Horticulture Management Area 1, City Parks and Facilities contract with Stephen Smith, which is roughly about $1 million. And the other is custodial services for park contract with Aztec Landscaping, which is roughly about $71,000. Staff has spent several months working on this proposal, so I do want to note that staff feels confident regarding the fiscal benefits. Furthermore, there are proposed savings as a result of this transition, but it's also worth noting that the Community Services Department sees this as an option to better serve our park system and provide a better customer experience for our residents. With that said, I do want to hand it over to Trey, but before I hand it over to Trey, I do want to note that this is not a council priority. However, the cost savings associated with this possible transition does leave some possible savings for other initiatives in the city, whether it's for roads or fire infrastructure needs. So with that said, I do want to introduce Trey. He is a PSC employee. He has been really spearheading this project and working with myself, the city manager's office, finance, and HR to also include PSC employees to fine-tune and make this presentation refined and presentable. So Trey.
Thank you, Nick. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Yes, this is our proposal to potentially bring our 2 contracts related to park maintenance in-house. And so a little overview, Nick kind of touched on this, but we have 2 contracts right now, the Landscape and Horticulture Management Area 1. Area 1 is City Parks and Facilities. We just call this contract Area 1 for short. And then there's the Custodial Parks contract. And these 2 contracts are going to total a little bit over $1.1 million for this fiscal year. Both these contracts are in their final extension, so they will sunset June 30th, 2025. The Area 1 contract is with Stephen Smith Landscaping. That is the bigger of the 2. It's a little over $1 million. And then the custodial contract is with Aztec Landscaping. That's a little over $71,000. And so we're estimated to spend roughly $6.4 million on these contracts over the next 5 years. And as we go through this proposal, I'll go a little more into detail on where those numbers come from. And so this proposal will bring both these contracts in-house and provide both substantial savings to the city and also improve the quality of work done in our parks and other city facilities. And so a little bit of history on these 2 contracts. The Area 1 contract with Stephen Smith, we awarded that in fiscal year 2020, 2021 for about $586,000. It's increased 77% over its duration to what it currently is now for this fiscal year, a little over $1 million. We've amended it 11 times. 287,000 of that has been permanent increases. 445,000 of that has been one-time increases. And it's also increased close to 164,000 from the CPI adjustments. And then the other one, the smaller one, the custodial one, a little bit smaller. It started a year later, fiscal year 2021, 2022. Started at $52,000. That one's also increased, not quite as significantly over its time frame, but it was $71,000 for this fiscal year. And so I want to show this graph specifically on Area 1, the bigger of the two. The blue is the base contract, the green is the amendments that were added to it that fiscal year. And like I mentioned, 2021 was when it started. It was also with Stephen Smith in 1920. That was just the final extension, and then we went forward with Stephen Smith again. But you can see the steady increases, and then pretty noticeable 21, 22. That's a pretty big amount of amendments. That was because that's when we started the Defensible Space Program, so there was a significant amount of both one-time and permanent increases. But overall, you can see the Area 1 contract in particular has increased pretty substantially over the length of its duration. And so getting into the projected cost, the Stephen Smith contract and the Aztec contract, the first two, these are increasing. We increased them based off a 3% CPI. And then I also have this column in the middle, the average amendment. So we've, for all the extensions of this last iteration of the contract, there's been an amendment of some sort. And so to kind of consider that cost, if we were to continue contracting this, I made an average amendment of the last 4 years, excluding outliers, to say, hey, the past 5 years, we've amended roughly $67,000 in these contracts. And so if we imagine keeping them the way we are, contracting them out, we have a total with amendments, which is a little bit higher, which is the $6.4 million. And then if we want to be a little more conservative and say, hey, maybe we don't want to consider, looking in the future, we don't want to consider those, hypothetical amendments. You got the $6 million number, which is a little smaller, a little more conservative estimate. And so our proposal, we would want to hire 5 additional full-time employees. We currently have 2 employees that are maintenance workers on our parks crew, so we'd hire 5 additional to make that 7 workers. We'd also hire 2 part-time workers. We'd lease 5 Ford F-150s, purchase 3 electric lawnmowers, purchase 2 trailers and 2 UTVs to equip the staff. And then all the supplies and tools that were included in that contract, in those contracts, we would now purchase. And basically how it would work would be all the members on the parks crew would have an assigned park or parks/trails, and they would work in those during the week, and they'd cover the work that both those contracts do. And then on the weekends, the 2 part-time employees would be opening the parks, and then the full-time parks crew would also do landscaping at fire stations, City Hall, and the ops yard. And then they'd also do any work that was once extra work in the Area 1 contract. And I'll go a little bit more into detail on that in a second. But kind of an overview of where these new workers would fit. This is the kind of an org chart of our public services department, and you can see they're in the yellow as the new workers, and they fall under our parks and landscape supervisor. And then you see those other 3 blue workers are irrigation specialists and 2 landscape maintenance workers. Those are staff we also already have on hand. And so you can kind of see the level where these workers would fit in compared to like our public works and facilities departments within public services. And so this would be the first year budget of this, fiscal year 25, 26. On your staff report, this is expanded in a lot more detailed. I shrunk it down here just so it can fit on the slide and is a little easier to see. But I think the most important thing to highlight here is in the employee section, the salaries are fully loaded, so benefits, all things like that are important, including salaries, that's all included there. And then another, I think, important thing to note is the contingency costs. There's a lot of contingency built already into this. I budgeted for things to be more expensive than they probably will be, but we also included a contingency cost for things that come up that we didn't plan for, or didn't expect, or we just want to have a little extra room in there, and we came into agreement that $20,000 is a good kind of number to put there. And so the first year in-house total is $946,000, almost $947,000, versus the projected contract totals of both Stephen Smith and Aztec's contracts of a little over $1.1 million. And so the first year savings, if we don't consider, an average amendment would have been added to that, is about $195,000 in savings. If we do consider that, hey, yeah, we probably would have had an amendment that year, this year in the future, and it probably would have been on average of what it usually was over the past 5 years, it would be about $262,000 in savings in that first year. And so kind of expanding on that and looking at in a bigger picture over 5 years, it's broken down a little differently. I've spread it out the other way here, but about $4.6 million for this over 5 years. And you can see the first year is the most expensive, or not the most expensive, but you have the upfront cost of starting this program, especially in vehicles and equipment you need to buy. The lawnmowers and trailers that you buy once at the beginning. And so looking at that 4.6 million compared to what we showed earlier with the combined contracts between Area 1 and Custodial, we have the 6.4 and the 6 million when we consider with amendments and without amendments versus the total in-house that we just showed of 4.6. If we consider the savings over 5 years, if we consider, we would have kept amending probably the way we would have, it's about 1.7, almost 1.8 million. And then if we don't consider those average amendments, it's about 1.5 million or 1.4 million. And so kind of logistics of how this will work. This parks crew, the 7 full-time workers and also the 2 part-time workers, will be supervised by the Parks and Landscape Supervisor. And they'll all have specific parks/trails that they're going to be responsible for during the week, Monday through Friday. They'll be opening them, maintaining them, and improving them. And you can see the park assignments on the right. And these are the kind of how we divvy these up as we consider, how big is each park, what assets are in each park, bathrooms, basketball courts, how close they are together. And we really like the way we've broken these down. We think they're very realistic. Really realistic and efficient way to break these down for the workers. During the weekends, the 2 part-time employees will be responsible for opening the parks, just kind of basic maintenance, not doing necessarily all the things that the full-time crew would go in to do. And they'll probably only be there until about midday on the weekends. And so the work schedule, Monday through Friday, how this will work is the parks crew are going to be at their assigned parks during the day. They're going to open them. They're going to clean the bathrooms. They're going to collect trash, empty the trash cans, and just do general maintenance that makes sure their park is ready for a day of use. And then after their park is open and kind of ready to go, they'll start working on larger projects. Landscaping, if there's a sports field or a grass area, they'll probably be mowing it. Maybe they'll do some trail maintenance. Some bigger repairs, bigger projects. And they'll also just kind of monitor their parks throughout the day. They'll be there, they'll be around as they're working. They'll be able to check the restrooms more frequently in the trash cans and just be around and be able to do things in the park as they come up. They'll also be able to team up for larger projects. If someone needs help on a large project, another worker from a different assigned park can always come over and assist. And then the only day that'll kind of be different Monday through Friday is on Fridays. They'll open their parks, and instead of hopping into larger projects, they'll hop into landscaping at city facilities. And the way we'll do this is probably on like the first and third Friday of the month, they'll do Fire Station 4 and City Hall, and then second and fourth Friday, Operations Yard and Fire Station 5. And then after that, they'll go back to their parks. On the weekends, the part-time employees will be in charge of opening the parks. They're not going to be doing the in-depth. They're not going to be mowing any lawns. They're just going to be making sure the parks are open and ready to go. Holidays, we'll have the parks open by either the duty person or we'll have an internal standby list of the parks crew. And then on holidays, they'll really only do basic opening procedures. They're not going to be doing any large-scale projects on Christmas Day or anything like that. And then sick days and vacation, when an employee is sick or out, the rest of the parks crew will coordinate to cover their assigned parks. We kind of have a matrix or kind of a flow chart almost of how different workers will kind of sub in when someone is missing and how responsibilities will be divvied when someone is out sick or on vacation. And then our irrigation specialist and parks and landscape supervisor will also be able to help cover or step in or assist in any way. And in a worst case scenario, the public works crew would always be able to assist. Extra work and special projects, this is something that was included in the Area 1 contract. The parks crew, the 7 full-time workers, will perform any work that would have previously been deemed extra work in the Area 1 contract. And what they'll do is kind of like how they do with the landscaping at the fire stations and city halls. They'll open their park, and then they'll kind of group up and tackle that extra, wherever that extra work is. They'll group up, go there together, do it, and then when they finish it, they'll head back to their parks. And not all extra work will require all 7 workers, so we'll be able to kind of coordinate where we send people and how we assign people to different things when extra work and special projects come up. And the biggest of that is the biggest project and extra work is the defensible space program, and so that 7 full-time worker parks crew will be doing that defensible space program. And so some of the benefits, I know at the beginning we talked about the financial benefits and the savings, but I think these benefits are, maybe a little more important and more impressive than some of the financial savings. But there'll be more time and effort spent in the parks and real in-depth care and maintenance. And for the workers that you have an assigned park, they'll have a sense of ownership and pride in their park. That's their park, or there are 2 parks that they have, and so it's going to be important to them, to have those parks in the best condition possible and improving them and taking care of them, the best they can. Another big thing is there's quicker response times to incidents and emergencies in the park. Something happens in a bathroom at a park, a toilet's overflowing, we already have the worker there. He's right there. You can head over and take care of it. Also, there's more presence in the park to deter vandalism and misuse of park assets. Sometimes people just misuse stuff in the parks. They misuse play equipment. They misuse bathrooms. They vandalize them, even during the day. And so just having, a city worker that's there, that's around, that's working, can also just kind of help deter people from misusing things and breaking things. And then the extra work that we talked about, it once required amendments. It can be scheduled and completed a lot quicker with it being in-house. And then additionally, the workers will be trained by the irrigation tech on their park's irrigation. And then one thing I didn't put on here, I think there will also be kind of a important community aspect. A lot of people, walk their dog in the same park every day or frequent the same parks. And if you're seeing, the same worker that's there, Monday through Friday, you start to build a relationship. There's a better kind of sense between, the person taking care of these parks and people that, use them frequently. They develop a relationship. They're like, hey, I noticed this in the back of the park needs improvement. And it's just kind of a better relationship between the public and the people taking care of the park. And so the next steps, if we wanted to, proceed with this, the next steps of how we would proceed with this proposal is we would need to appropriate about $250,000 at mid-year or sooner. That would allow us to lease the trucks, purchase equipment and supplies. The trucks right now take about 4 months to get through the leasing program. We need to approve these new positions for fiscal year 25-26, and we need to allow human resources to start beginning the process for these new positions to make sure we're all ready to go with our staff on July 1. And so our other options, we don't have to go through with this. We can continue our status quo. We're preparing our RFP and RFB for these 2 contracts. The only thing with that is in recent history there's been limited responses for these requests for proposals and bids, and the costs continue to increase year over year, as we kind of saw from some of the graphs earlier, and how they have previously increased and how we project them to continually increase. And then kind of another option is we could consider this at budget adoption. We'd still be preparing and issuing RFPs and RFBs for those 2 contracts, and we'd extend our current contracts for 90 days. Again, that might not be enough to get all the things we need on board, and we would potentially need some sort of special legal permission to extend those contracts kind of beyond those 90 days, and the contractors may not want to accept, knowing they're not going to continue with their contract. And before I wrap it up, I wanted to bring Sam up here who wanted to talk a little bit about this.
Bring the puppet up.
Good evening. I wanted to thank Finance and HR, for starters, for giving us a lot of information and guidance on this proposal, and I'd like to thank Trey. Good job. He was the brains behind this operation. This took many, many hours, weeks, months of thought and vetting through our whole department. We're all on board with this. We think it's a great idea. This is what I used to do in San Diego. My very first job, 1995, was cleaning a park just like this. And when I first came here in '07, my first thought was, wow, why doesn't Santee do that? And I was new and didn't know anything and didn't know anybody, so I kept my mouth shut and we never really discussed it. But now we have a director that respects our department and listens to us, and we have a city manager and council that, you know, we trust, and I adore you guys. So we feel comfortable bringing this to you. We know it will work. We're nervous. I'm not going to lie. This is a big deal. This is a big ask. Our department's never asked anything like this in the 17 years I've been here. So I realize the consequences and the ramifications of adding 5 staff. I know it's a big ask. But I honestly believe it's going to work. We're going to have a better product. We don't have to make a profit. We're not for profit. We're going to be city workers that are going to do a fantastic job. And as Eric King, the landscape supervisor that's going to oversee this, he always tells me he would rather supervise employees than manage a contract. So I thank you for your consideration. We're all on board. If you don't like the proposal, we totally understand. We have Plan B in our back pocket, but we just wanted you to consider it and hear what we're thinking. If we save money and have a better product, I think it's a win-win. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sam. That was phenomenal. I just want to add one thing that somewhat contradicts the last bullet point that Trey had mentioned. So I went ahead and had a really good meeting with our current, with the current CEO of Stephen Smith, and I feel confident telling you all that he did inform us that he wants to be a partner during this transition. If the process takes a little longer than 90 days, he's more than willing to explore a lengthier contract, whether it's more than 90 days or 5 months or 4 months, to help us through this transition period. We did inform him that we are still very much interested in keeping Area 2 and Area 3 because we have 2 other contracts with Stephen Smith, and he's very happy to do business with us, and he wants to be a steward with us during this transition. Something else to consider for your conversation.
Great, thanks. I need to make one observation first.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I first met you, Sam, your hair color is the same as Trey's. So Trey, look what you have to look forward to.
Still the same length.
That's why I said color. Rob.
I was going to say I would be been more inclined to approve this if Sam had a tie on, but I guess a button-down shirt over his T-shirt that's dressed up enough for our man. We love you, Sam. I think you guys did a bang-up job on this. I appreciate the research that you did on this. It's clear that you've put a lot of time, effort, and energy into this, and that's very much appreciated. I like that you actually made it very clear that it's that the numbers are all in on the staff benefits, as well as the salaries. So I sincerely appreciate that, because that would be a question that we are always asking, because that's not always what we get when we're being asked. It's not always the full information that we get when we're being asked to hire more people. So I appreciate you guys being completely forthright with that. One question I do have is if you do lease the 5 trucks, on those, is maintenance included on those? It is. So they do include the maintenance on those?
I included in the staff report, there's some, it is included for maintenance for not just the F-150s, but all the equipment, and then it adjusts for inflation and increasing prices. So yeah.
Who's performing the maintenance on the equipment? Tools.
Yeah, fair enough. I think maybe I should have been more clear, because lots of times when you lease a vehicle, the dealership provides maintenance on the vehicles for however many years that you're leasing the vehicle. I'm referring to the trucks in particular.
We looked at that. All those costs are in the staff report. So it's either going to be fleet or they'll contract it out to like Pet Boys or whatever.
Okay, so you've got the cost in there, but it's not included in the lease price, as far as like Ford is not going to be doing the maintenance on them. You're not driving them to Ford and having.
Correct.
It's going to be done by fleet or by local vendor.
Correct. It'd be basic oil changes and tires and stuff like that, and brakes. Yes, the enterprise wouldn't do that.
Okay.
It would be fleet department.
All right, that was it. But thank you. Hey, thank you very much. You guys did a bang-up job on this, and I am actually in support of moving forward with this.
So I actually want to add onto that right there. So actually one of my questions, so I mean, encumbering fleet with more trucks obviously is a consideration, but what about the maintenance of the lawnmowers and the tools and things like that? Who's doing that work?
Why don't you stay there?
Yeah, you might want to stay up there for
Yes,
a
sir.
while. So, or you want to bring Chris up and Eric too?
Sure. She goes to show you how much support there is for this program. If
Right.
you have practically the whole department here. Small equipment, we farm that out to A&B Saw, or we'll do it in-house ourselves. It just depends on what type of maintenance. So if a weed whacker motor blows up, we'll probably go buy a new one, but a tune-up, we'll do it ourselves. But we do go to A&B and drop off chainsaws for things that we can't fix.
So beyond that, the storage of all this additional equipment, additional trucks. Obviously, we're putting an internal fire station at the ops yard now. You've done a lot of shuffling of stuff there. So obviously, adding more vehicles, more. I'm sure you thought this all through, but I guess want to hear about some of those.
I could take that question,
considerations.
Councilmember. I went ahead and had a conversation with Steve regarding the submittal for core, and we are estimating Steve Miller. And we went ahead and made the proposal to have additional spaces for these additional vehicles when we're doing the plan check for core.
Okay. And Nick, you actually mentioned something that actually concerns me. So Stephen Smith, obviously willing to continue in helping any way they want or need to as a backup, things like that. But I'll give you an example right now. Our contract with Eskil is completely failing us. We've asked Eskil to continue to do more and more work for us in the last 6 months, and they have completely dropped the ball and are failing us here. So I don't want to see us using anybody else. If we go down this path, like you said, you guys got to own it. You guys got to take this because I am not going to bail you out with like we do with Eskil, because Eskil's contract, as far as I'm concerned, is going to be canceled this year. We're not bailing out you guys like we did the building department. So
I'd like to clear that up, sir. So what I meant by helping us through the transition period, I mean just legitimately helping us out through this transition period. Once we are fully staffed, once we fully have the vehicles, once we have our lawnmowers, our trailers, we are done with Area 1.
yeah.
Ron?
Can you explain the defensible space again? Because I noticed that we put 400,000, I think it was, and we're putting probably, 50,000 defensible space a year?
Those were the areas that were identified back in 21, I believe. That's where we contracted out with Stephen Smith to cut 8 areas around town as defensible space, and we've been paying them now to do it every year, so we'll take over that aspect and do it in-house.
Do you think you can increase that with this current staff, with the new staff?
We can maintain it for sure. I don't know what you mean by increase.
Well, I mean, can we find more defensible space areas we can increase?
Yeah, I think so. If other defensible spaces come up, I think we could absorb it, yes.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Laura?
So this is my language for sure. This was a great report, very thorough, lots of valuable information, and everything I would have asked as a former park director to be included in a report. And I did ask our city manager, so I feel for you, Eric, adding, are you sure he wants to add 5 full-time and 2, and basically you're nodding your head yes, because Marlene explained you're chasing around the contractor. You'd rather have it in-house and take care of the problem yourself. And I feel exactly the same way. And, when people comment about how beautiful Santee Lakes is, which I appreciate, it is because the work is, yes, we use Greenbrier, but most of the work is done in-house. And, our park rangers are able to do all that work. Very well done. I'm in total support of moving immediately and not waiting for a budget. I know it takes a long time to hire people, interview. I don't even know if job descriptions are created yet, or if you have some laying around. And then, of course, the leasing of the vehicles. You would want to be ready to go July 1, and I would want you to be ready to go July 1 as well. I do have a couple questions. when you say worker A for Mass Park, does that include West and that trail?
Mass Park is such a big park that that person would only have Mass Park. However, worker, one of them.
Oh, I see it. Worker G.
Yeah,
has
so
Mass.
that person would have Shadow Hill and then the smaller parks of Sky Ranch and Mass Park West Trail.
Wow, they're going all the way to Sky Ranch and then.
That's the only one.
It's the logistically.
Yeah, someone had to get less than ideal.
Wah wah.
But
Sorry, worker G.
Who's the junior guy?
Yeah, totally.
So one thing I will say with worker G is that worker would want to be close with worker A because he or she would be the backup kind of going into the Mass Park.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand that.
They
Yeah.
kind of work together. I guess I didn't go into that, but there's kind of intricate details like that exist that I didn't put.
You don't need to. I just, I think of those
I
things. but-
appreciate you asking, but yeah, stuff like that we did consider.
Okay. The cost savings is great. The benefits are, like you said, even better. And being able to be responsive so quickly, I mean, this is huge. It's just such a great, this is exactly the kind of stuff we want, and a timely presentation to us so we can make budget decisions now versus, looking at something like this in May or June. So this is great. I don't know if Vice Mayor McNellis was doing this for approval to move forward immediately.
Yes, I was.
Okay, then I second it.
I think we're set up as a workshop, and obviously this is direction, and your direction is very clear. But items will need to be brought back in terms of yeah.
So we were thinking about just including this in the mid-year, and then we could appropriate the funds then.
Okay.
Well, except for the fact that if we don't appropriate the funds for another 2 months, does that put us behind on being able to hire people and get leasing and things of that nature?
Can we bring it back 2 weeks?
Sure.
We can. Your mid-year budget is in 2 council meetings, so that still gives you March, April, May, and June. That gives us 4 months to be able to get the vehicles here and whatnot. So that's why we wanted to bring it forward now, in case there's any tweaking that the council wanted in the proposal. We can still get it included in mid-year and get it moved ahead.
That's super tight, though.
So really quick,
Justin.
I just want to add one thing. The anomaly here from my seat is the vehicles and hiring staff. So right now, I know Deputy Chief is looking into the ETA of the vehicles with Enterprise. It's 4 to 6 months.
Wow, that's a long
Right,
time.
that's the concern here.
Yeah, exactly.
So a consensus, I think we're ready to move
Make it
forward
so.
with you guys' recommendation here.
So
We can turn this into an action item.
No,
you can't. That's right.
So-
Yeah,
so, but
you
I
have
mean,
to bring it back.
We can bring it back next meeting.
Staff can start working per your direction, but
Right.
in
Yeah.
terms of the budget adjustments and whatnot, that needs to come back to you.
Sure.
Okay.
So
Where's the direction that we want to?
the direction of going forward, I mean, they can start
move
working
forward.
on
Okay.
job descriptions, all those things can be moving forward.
Yeah, and I only had one question, and that is regarding staffing, because sometimes even with 7 bodies, okay, there could be some things that are overwhelming, or maybe 2 people are out sick, or somebody gets injured. And, do we have the ability to do temporary hires, like maybe from a labor ready or Excel staffing or something, to backfill, because it's really labor, right?
Mayor, we can always do that. One of the things that the department has been looking on, and Nick, correct me if I say something that's incorrect here, but there's been a lot of discussion about changing the titles of some and the job descriptions of some of our staff. If you notice, there's a park maintenance worker,
Right.
there's a facilities maintenance worker, there's a public services maintenance worker. We want to make them all maintenance workers. So if in the event that we need assistance back and forth, or somebody wants to change their focus, we can shuffle those employees around without having to redo a whole new job description. So that's been part of the discussion here. So it allows for more flexibility and pooling of employee resources when we need something really quick.
Trey, do me a kindness. Can you pull up the org chart really quick? Sam, do you mind addressing that topic regarding the job titles? while keeping the maintenance tech worker?
Sure. Kind of gets complicated. We have a standby duty list and a drug and alcohol policy list. And Marlene, you're correct. We were talking about it, but my apologies. I think we might have left some details out. What we'd like to do is make the maintenance technician a maintenance worker, facilities maintenance technician. In order to abide by the drug and alcohol policy and the standby duty policy, we will only have one maintenance worker, and that will be with Chris Gooden's crew on public services. They need a Class B driver's license so that they would be part of the DOT program and get drug tested. The other landscape maintenance workers will be just that. They'll still be able to do the duty, but they won't be subject to random drug tests because they don't have a Class B. So in the policy, it says only maintenance workers get drug tested. So we have one maintenance worker. He's on Chris Gooden's crew, Public Works. He's going to get a Class B. Everyone else will be subject to, or be allowed to do the standby duty, but they won't be subjected to drug testing, if that makes sense. It's kind of convoluted.
Yeah.
So so to answer your question, Mr. Mayor, we do have the ability. We used to temp out workers, but I don't think we'll need it, honestly. Between our Public Works staff, we have working supervisors. I'll get out and pick up, I'll do whatever. So as a team, we'll all do it. So it's a good point, but I honestly don't think it'll be necessary.
Okay, I just don't want anything to be left out, because when you do something, definitely goes wrong, doesn't it? Okay, all right then. I think direction is understood, and bring that back when you can.
Whatever needs to be done to get
Right.
to get going on the leases of the vehicles. It sounds to me like that's the thing that's going to take the most time out of everything.
Yep.
Is that, so whatever needs to be done to get that process started, get back to us as quick as possible.
Yeah, and just according to the counselor, it sounds like even if it came back 30 days later, we still can make progress. We can already get started. And so I want to make sure that Heather can do this and doesn't leave any questions when it comes back to us. So, all right then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job. I forgot where we're at. My lucky number. Okay, this is the first reading of an ordinance adding chapter 7.19 to Title 7 of the Santee Municipal Code to prohibit trespass on private property and business premises. Counselor.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. From time to time, council and city staff receive complaints about certain activities that are adverse that occur at local commercial properties. And those have impacts on our local businesses. The city manager, the sheriff, city attorney's office, and multiple other departments have been working on addressing these issues, including, but not limited to, holding a recent meeting with a lot of the local property owners to try to get them to sign no trespass letters to allow the sheriff to do some enforcement under state law. But council's also directed us all to look at other options, and what we have tonight for you is another option for you to consider to help add another tool to the city's toolbox to address this issue. So if we go to the next slide. Currently in our municipal code, we have a wide variety of provisions where we do regulate certain activities, including on some of the private properties, some of the retail centers. These things include things like alcohol consumption in certain areas that are posted, aggressive solicitation in certain areas. So we do have, we kind of touch on those, but we don't have a comprehensive local no trespassing ordinance. Currently, that is handled under the California Penal Code. The sheriff, in certain situations, is able to do some enforcement, and then the district attorney is the entity that would prosecute those potential violations, not the city attorney's office. What we are proposing to you tonight is a local ordinance that would not replace that process, but would augment that process and would allow for more local control of this situation. If you go to the next slide, please. So again, what we're proposing is a local trespass, a no trespass ordinance. It would make trespassing on private property a violation of the municipal code in addition to the California Penal Code. It would allow the city code enforcement officers to cite violations. It would also allow the city attorney's office to enforce. This also includes provisions that I think will be particularly helpful here because it relates not only to the property owner and the property owner's authorization, but it applies to lessees. So individual businesses who have the right to be there, to occupy the site, can, if they're being harassed or if there's activity that's occurring that's a problem, and if they take certain steps to say, you're not allowed to be here, and that person continues to engage in that activity, that would be a violation of this local code, would allow our office to enforce. So I think it's an important tool to help address this issue. If you go to the next slide. We do recommend that you introduce and conduct the first reading of the ordinance tonight and then set the second reading and potential adoption for February 12th, 2025. Happy to answer any questions.
I have one real quick. How long would that last? Just if they tell you to stay away and they show up a year later, or there's time limit on it?
Basically, anytime someone is entering the property after being told not to be there, there's a violation. But it's not like you could say it once and be banned forever. I mean, and obviously there's going to be some fact-specific situations we're going to have to work through. But the issues that have been brought to us and you've heard here, those situations would have been violations of this provision.
So you call the sheriffs and even code enforcement or whoever, and they're still hanging around. You say, well, I've told them 3 times now. I mean, it's their word against theirs, and at that point.
Well, that would be for us to assess and to bring forth a prosecution if we felt it was appropriate.
Well, you know what, there's already a procedure that the sheriff would follow in a case like that, and that's by completing a field interview slip, if I'm not mistaken. That documents the demand for them to leave the property, and that's where your direct evidence is to the issue of being told previously, and that's when you would cite and take further action. Well, it could take one time, really, but it has to be documented. Chances are, though, that if a deputy goes out, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and tells somebody to leave, fill out a field interview slip, and somebody goes out there at 6 o'clock p.m. or 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock p.m., that's not going to be in the system yet. They may not be, if another deputy goes, they may not know about that. And that would probably be a very different, exception to that rule, but that would eventually hit the system. City Attorney's Office gets that information and becomes the evidence of the offense. Did I get that about right?
That's right. And then in addition, obviously, the code enforcement would follow a similar procedure, different than the sheriff because it's not a law enforcement situation. But I mean, it's a violation of the code. It would be prosecuted by us if it's appropriate as a potential misdemeanor.
Right. But there's still a documentation by the administrative personnel.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, very similar circumstance or situation. So, you have something, Rob?
Oh, yeah. So, all right. So are we going to require the business owner to have anything on file, or is it just going to be a standard operating procedure that in the city of Santee, if it's, you're the landlord, or I'm sorry, the leaseor of the property, or leasee of the property, I should say, that you just make a phone call to now. All right, so by hands down, far and away, I don't know about the rest of you, but this is what I get the most calls on as a council member. People loitering, defecating, urinating, breaking into our local businesses' properties, or causing a ruckus, not and refusing to leave, especially at the most of the restaurants and things of that nature. Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. This is I get more calls on this than I do wildfires even.
Caused by the people that.
So that being said, I want to know what the procedure is. Are we still telling them to call the deputies? Or are we telling them to call code enforcement? What do we? I mean, obviously most of these people are not. They're not people in their right mind at least at the time of these incidents. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing the things that they're doing. So I can't imagine we're going to have someone from code enforcement go out there to remove them. We were probably calling a deputy to come out there. But previously we would get, I mean, I hear it all the time that, deputies saying, well, sorry, we can't do anything because it's private property and the owner of the building doesn't do this. So we don't show up unless it's something really, really bad. Or they get a phone call from us saying, well, I need your help to get someone out there. So I don't want that to be happening anymore. Like if this is a tool that can be utilized, all right, let's get it utilized. Make sure all the deputies know that they can now, as of whenever date this finally goes into effect, that they will have the right to cite and or remove these individuals from a business.
Right, that's right, Vice Mayor. I mean, we've worked with the sheriff on this a little bit. We need to continue to work with the sheriff. Sheriff's reviewed this. I think he can speak for himself, but the captain supports this. And, in terms of continuing implementation, we'll need to work on that. But you're right. I mean, I don't think it's fundamentally going to change in those situations. There's going to be a call to the sheriff. They're going to respond. They're just going to have an additional tool that they don't have now. And so hopefully that would address the conditions of saying, well, this doesn't meet a penal code situation, because this is basically a broader provision. I do think that there might be situations when the sheriff is unable to respond, or if it's a less life and safety threat, but it's still a problem that we need to address it like we do other code enforcement situations. So our folks might be coming out there. So I guess what I would say to you is that we have worked together, and maybe we can continue to work together before we bring this back to second reading and have a more detailed sort of implementation plan.
I would appreciate if you do that, because once this goes out, I mean, I'm going to be very happy to pass this along to especially the several business owners that I know have the repeat offenders more often than not. And it's, it's not even just the restaurants. It's any place that, has a patio or balcony or any place that someone can go and do unconscionable things. Captain, to the mayor's point, he stated that you do a field report every single time. Are they doing that every time, or is that just when they're actually taking action on somebody?
It doesn't happen every time.
I didn't think so.
Usually it happens when the deputy has additional time to write things down, no calls pending, or it is not an arrestable offense.
So it doesn't happen every time. So I want to make that very clear that I get that it should happen. That's what the procedure is. But if we're going to make that be the procedure, then we need to have that done every single time. And I know now we're adding more paperwork to your caseload and your workload. But if we're not going to require that level, if it is just the word of the business owner, then we need to know what that is. Does that make sense? Between now and the next reading.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll work with Captain, and we'll bring you a more detailed procedure so that you understand fully how this will be implemented. But I mean, we've done this in other jurisdictions, and it's been very successful.
I don't want to add more burden to a deputy's day. I want them out, moving, and on to the next thing as quick as possible. But I don't. Because when you do have that, when you add more drudgery to their day, they're not going to show up as fast. Let's just be honest. It's the point of least resistance. Like if it's something that's going to be a burden to you, I'll take this other call first, or whatever the case may be. So I don't want to add more crap to their caseload. I want to see something actually get done, and not have them go, gosh, now we got to do another report in order for this to happen. That won't work. fundamentally it's not going to work. It sounds great in theory. It sounds like, oh yeah, they have no problem. They'll write those reports out. No, you're giving them one more reason to not show up.
Yeah, well, so that you understand what I'm talking about, it all depends on the circumstance. Like, for instance, if you're out just doing regular patrol, you see somebody, getting ready to, set up a camp, for instance, behind Walmart or wherever. Well, you're going to go out there and you're going to shake them down and basically say, we have a new rule in Santee, you can't be here. If we get complaints, we're going to be coming back. You may not throw out a field interview on something like that. But if you get a direct complaint from a property owner at, let's say, and a deputy responds, well, there's going to be two things. First, there's going to be an incident report, and the deputy, if he makes contact, he's going to fill out a field interview slip. And if he's not doing his job. No offense, but he's not doing his job.
It's not what happens.
Well, I don't care what happens. I'm telling you how it's supposed to be. And it's our job, it's the captain's job to make sure that his instructions are followed. And the counselor and the sheriff's captain is going to make sure that they understand what the procedures are and tell the people that work for them.
I understand a perfect world and I understand a real world. And I want to make sure in the real world that we're giving them the tools that they need to remove people from the restaurants, bars, real estate offices, insurance offices, and all the rest that I get called on, and I'm sure the rest of you get called on as well, when people are doing bad things there, without having to say, okay, well now, and if I do that now, I'm adding more steps than I didn't have to do before, just to move them along and have some sort of record. Whether, once again, I think the easiest part is if we have a phone call log. I mean, if somebody calls a non-emergency number, there's a phone call log right there that they called in. I mean, that could be proof in and of itself that they made this phone call, and they're going to have some sort of description of the individual that's causing the problems at the business or restaurant or whatever the case may be. So just trying to be practical about the real world, how it actually really happens in today's law enforcement world. What are you really doing? And whatever we can do to get the effect that we want accomplished without adding more burden to your day, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, to your point, Sean. So I think that's, I think we're all in support of anything we can do extra to help here, but I think we need a little bit of clarity to what the lessee's responsibility as opposed to the owner is here. Like, do they have to post a sign that says no trespassing in the business under the new ordinance or things like that? Because obviously that has been the challenge in the past, is the owner's been the only one that's been able to, be the person of removal, and if we give someone to the lessees on any of these businesses, I mean, that's a good thing. But I think we need to be clear on not the extra work on the deputies, but what is the, process for the lessee? Like, what do? They call it a non-emergency line and, go through that path, or just,
Yeah, no, understood. And I think, kind of like when we first did the river ordinance, we had a similar conversation about how it would be implemented, what we would do to educate people about it. So we can work with the captain on that and bring that all back. So I would encourage you to do the introduction, conduct the first reading. Of course. If you're not happy with it when it comes back, you will tell us and we'll make some adjustments. But we'll be prepared when it comes back to give you all that information.
I just have a quick question. Based on my knowledge of how it works right now, currently, without this, which I think is a great step forward, the property owner has to file something with the sheriff's. It has to be on file there. I don't think it's electronic. I'm not sure how your database works.
It's got to be notarized now. It's got to be every single year.
And the fact that it has to be done every single year.
Yes.
I think, is that a sheriff policy, a law?
It's in the state law. Yeah, so that's again why, we think the city manager, the captain did a really nice effort to try to encourage that. And we're still going to do that too, because that, it's still another tool, right? But this is not as rigorous in terms of those requirements. This is.
Love it.
Yep.
So
Ron?
we have professional bus bench sitters. And I was just wondering, would that?
Call MTS.
Well, it's what we have, and they leave and then they get ticketed. The one lady had 100 tickets, I think, from the sheriffs and from MTS, and she was still sitting on the bus bench. So will this help solve that?
This is not going to solve all the problems that you have. And
I mean, could they take her in at that point?
No, I mean, this is designed to address those conditions that you've heard about, where they're something that isn't, because of the way the state law is written, isn't an offense under the state law or can't be prosecuted, but is a problem.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we're trying to address, and it won't address every issue. It's not a silver bullet, right? It's just another tool that we think will be effective, and we'll bring back a kind of more detail on the protocol.
Okay, I want to make it clear that I have every confidence that the sheriff's going to do their job, and without question or doubt. I'm going to move that we approve this ordinance. Motion second, please vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Takes us to item number 14, we report on new laws enacted in 2024 relevant to Santee. Sean.
Okay, this is just a short report. We've given you more detail in the staff report, but annually we try to go through all the new laws, identify ones that we think are things that the council staff should be aware of. The list I provided in the staff report, I can't say it's an exhaustive list of everything you should look at. We'll talk about the number of bills that were introduced in a second, but we're still going through a lot of these things, but we do want to bring these things to your attention. If council sees something or if staff sees something, and we're happy to do more assessment. But if we go to the next slide, just in general, there were over 2,000 bills introduced. About 1,200 of those made it to the governor's desk. He vetoed about 16% of those. The rest became laws. Probably the most significant area where there was very positive new strengthening of the laws relates and ties into what we just did. But with regard to retail thefts, there was a whole package of bills that was designed to address all the sort of more extreme things that have happened recently, particularly like examples in San Francisco and whatnot. But really very real tools that I know that the captain has already started to implement, his sheriff's office is implementing, and so very, very positive steps there. On the flip side, we do see the continued erosion of local control in the area of housing and bills like that. Other than that, there really were no sort of groundbreaking pieces of legislation, at least in my view. But I do want to highlight 6 laws real quick. So if we go to the next slide. First one is this AB 413, which is, it's actually an older law. It was passed a year or two ago, but it's now the ability to enforce it became effective this year. This is the one where I presented this a while back when it was first enacted, but basically it prohibits parking within 20 or 15 feet, depending upon the nature of the intersection, before a marked or unmarked crosswalk. Staff is working with the sheriff's office to educate people about this new requirement. I think flyers are being placed on vehicles that would otherwise be subject to citations. And eventually there will be a process by which the citations will occur. And there's been a lot of public education sort of generally about this. There's, if you go online, there's some really amazing videos about the difference between what you can see and what you can't see when there's a car there. So, but anyway, I wanted to highlight that because I know your staff is working on that. The sheriff's office is working on it. The next one is the retail theft bills I mentioned. I'm not going to go through all of them, but they're really a powerful package of bills. The next 2 are kind of interrelated, but the Levine Act, which now was amended a while back, 2 years ago, to apply to elected officials. And so this is the new requirement that limits the amount of campaign contributions that elected officials can receive, and then act on a certain item before the city council. There's two bills that amended that law. The biggest change really is that it increases the amount of campaign contributions from $250, which was the original law, to $500. And then there's also a longer period to cure any inadvertent potential violation, where you can give the contribution back. It was 14 days, it's now 30 days. There's also a list of contracts that are excluded. So contracts less than $50,000, routine items that come before you, like amendments that you've already approved, things like that. So I'll work with you individually on this as it kind of comes forward, but it's a important thing for you to know that law has changed. AB 2561, this is a bill that you'll see and we'll have to just address as you move through the budget process. But basically, we need to identify vacancies in certain city positions and then document our attempts to recruit for those positions. And then there needs to be a public hearing once a year on that process. So again, what we'll do, just to make it clear, is we'll just roll that into the budgeting process. It's designed primarily for labor groups to make sure that there's a process by which vacancies in bargaining units are filled. AB 98 is, this is the one you probably have heard something about this, but basically this is kind of a local control question, but the state has come up with specific design standards for logistics centers. So after, it's effective in January 1, 2026. So it doesn't affect current applications, but it will affect, future applications or amendments potentially to things. So basically, when this law is effective, there will be certain design standards that have to apply to certain logistics centers. And then there's kind of truck routes and things like that apply as well. So not to worry about it now, but if in the future there's a new application, it may be something that has to be addressed. And then the final one I just wanted to highlight is this, basically this AB 166, which is the framework for the distribution of $1 billion in homeless housing assistance and prevention. So may or may not be relevant to our community. Maybe there's money there that eventually we could tap into, but it comes with certain requirements, and that's what's mapped out in the bill. So next slide. Again, it's almost impossible to keep up with all the new requirements. We have a process internally to try to make sure we identify these new laws for you. We're going to continue to do that, but again, ask staff and council if there's something in particular you want more information on. I've gotten some questions already. I'm happy to provide more information, but this is just a quick snapshot to try to issue spot and identify new legislation. And that's all. So I just ask that you receive the report. No actions required.
Thank you. I do have one speaker slip.
Truth?
All right, says New Scum continued the trend of the erosion of local control. I ask, is it a trend or a plan? And I'm going to have my own highlights. AB 1785, preventing the home address, telephone number, name, and accessory personal number of an elected or appointed official without their own consent. That's very concerning. How can someone even determine if someone running lives in their area or not? AB 2715, Santee probably needs that one, privacy closed session for nefarious cyber attacks. AB 2553, lower traffic impact fees for stack impacts that cause traffic impacts. And Without that money, we can't afford to introduce reverse psychology ideas for the crash zone at the 125. You could just put a bullseye at the end. That was my mom's idea. AB 2597, it seems Chris Ward wants even less public input on housing developments. Doesn't that sound fun? SB 450, it seems Tony Atkins wants no local government control of stack and pack developments that tower over people's homes. SB 1037, it seems Scott Wiener wants to tax every city and county $50,000 a month for not building what the state dictators want. And I made sure to give their names in my report so everybody knows who not to vote for. 11 or more bills about retail theft, none actually needed because we have the Constitution supposed to protect private property, yet nobody's enforcing the law. AB 2684, Santee's going to have many issues addressing hazards associated with extreme heat coming soon. AB 2302, only 50% of the number of members that would establish a quorum are present within the territory. And then public comment period not closed until public comment period has elapsed, which is different from how it's run here. And it talks about not requiring a physical location for a public meeting, but then it mentions a location of meetings, even with call-in or internet-based options. So it's very contradictory and apparently very long. I haven't read it. That's actually from a friend. I asked, do you have any time to just take a look at this for me? I'm going to look into that another time. SB 1034, public records documents blocked for 2 weeks by fraudulent states of emergencies. So a loophole, would multiple states of emergencies delay records requests by multiple segments of 2 weeks each? Because none of that includes the time required to wait for months for a government to retrieve or deny the existence of records requested, like the county does all the time. SB 1100 is the only one that makes sense for stopping a subtle form of discrimination in employment, which is car ownership, or at least having a license to drive. And you guys talked a very long time tonight, so I see why I haven't come back in a while, but thank you, because I did finish working on Sandag during this meeting. And a good job, shout out to Laura. Thank you.
Thanks. All right.
Well, I just wanted to make a comment on one of them that Truth didn't highlight. SB 1418 requires a local ordinance on hydrogen fuel stations by September 30th, 2028. Nuts.
Let's get on that.
But anyway.
There's a bunch that Sandy has to worry about in the next 5 years.
Okay, let's see. Let's go to non-agenda public comment. Any speaker slips?
No, sir.
Thank you. And that goes to council reports. Ron? Or?
So yes, I on Monday was, appointed, I guess, to the ACPD board. There's 5 supervisor districts. Anyway, so that's how it's done now versus how it used to be done. I don't know how it used to be done, but that was quite an interesting meeting. I don't even know if District 3 is decided yet. It was a little bit contentious for some of the appointments, and one hasn't been made yet. So anyway, that was interesting. And then right after, I attended my first League of California Cities meeting as an alternate. Met the new mayor of Encinitas, and congratulations to the city of Encinitas for their new council. They finally elected some people. So those are my comments.
Great, thanks. Dustin?
Yeah, started the new year, so actually I went down to, Mr. Rinsberry and I went down to the county administration building today, and the San Diego River Conservancy, so as far as there, the state's broke, they don't want to give no more money to the Conservancy, and they want to take away some funds they've already allocated, so. Primarily for us, they're looking at taking back our $900,000 grant fund for the river. So we're already tackling it.
Yeah, spend that.
Uh-huh.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, after many, many years of trying to find a new training structure for Heartland Fire Training Authority, I think we finally found one. And more importantly, I shouldn't say that we found structures or in the past, but couldn't find a contractor that would put them together because they didn't want the liability. So we finally found a structure that is modular in nature, so it's using sea containers basically. So you can modify the structures as time goes on, as needed to duplicate different types of structures that firefighters may find in their community or their city that they serve. While at the same time something goes wrong with one, it's easy to pull and switch out, almost like Legos, these without having to redo the entire thing. So I thought it's great. I just love the technology that's being used for these sea containers now. You're seeing them all over the place in different things. So I thought it was neat that they're doing it. But most important to me was the manufacturer is also going to be the contractor installing it all and warrantying it all. And it's all coming under one bid price. So so we'll finally actually see this come to fruition. And it's been a lot of years waiting for this to happen. Where's it located? It'd be at the training facility right there on, was that on?
Marshall?
Marshall, thank you.
All right, thanks. The only thing I have to say is that next month I have coming up a Cal Cities board meeting that'll be in Rancho Cucamonga. Can't wait to see how that comes off, first meeting of the year. And then, let's see, at the Sandag board meeting this couple weeks ago now, I think it was, I was appointed the second vice chair. And so that's going to be interesting. Joe LaCava is the first vice chair, and Lisa Hebner from Solana Beach will be the chair. Things are really kind of shaping up to be a little bit different, feeling. Went from a 1 minute timer on public comment to a 2 minute timer. We're talking, we've actually had some conversations about how we can shorten the meetings and whatnot, and we might be able to extend that time a little bit more so that people can say what they think, and ask questions and get that out. And then I think we're going to have a lot better dialogue around the entire board of directors. At least that's my hope. And so we actually get something done for a change. Anyways, that's all I have. City manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the effort to get through this quickly, I just want to highlight that we have 2 events coming up in the month of February here in the city of Santee. One of them is our Heroes Golf Classic. It's coming up on February 13th. If you are interested and you're a golfer or you just want to support the military units that the city works with, there is a way for you to participate in this event. You can pick up the information at a city facility or online. We encourage everybody to participate. It's going to be a great time, and it's a good opportunity to support our military unit, particularly the HMH 462 out of Miramar. The other event that we have coming up is on Saturday, February 22nd. It's our annual Fido Fest. Once again, one of the greatest events for dogs you will find in East County. It's on Saturday, the 22nd, from 11 to 3 at Town Center Community Park East. We encourage everybody to come out, bring your dogs, and have some fun. That's all I have tonight, sir. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Do you have anything else for us?
No, that's
City
it.
Attorney? Thank you. Well, not hearing that, then I will say that this meeting is adjourned. And you're still out of